Part 22. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 212. About the engagement. The Hinata and Yamanaka families will take care of things on their own, and they don't need juniors like Ryosuke Yagamai to worry about it. On the other side, Zien and the others, Yagamai Ryosuke has also decided to invite some close friends to his house for dinner in a week, and by the way, he will inform them about this matter. As for the guest list for the banquet, Ryosuke Yagamai, Yojeo, and the others discussed it and finally confirmed the list. Not many people. They were all ninjas from Konoha, probably about a dozen or 20 people. When the time comes, a long table will be set up in the yard where you can sit. By the way, Ryosuke Yagamai has moved now. The former two-story building was replaced by a large villa now. The location is on the outskirts of Konoha. Mainly in the central area, to build such a large villa, many surrounding buildings would have to be demolished. Although it wasn't impossible, Yagamai Ryosuke felt it was unnecessary, so he didn't do it. The villa has a front and backyard, and the backyard is very large. The scope is similar to that of a small ninja clan. Therefore, there are many people living in the villa. Except for Ryosuke Yagamai and his mother Mitsuki Yagamai. Ryosuke Yagamai's 6 girlfriends also have their own rooms in the villa. But they won't come to stay every day. On the other hand, Xianglin had already moved in directly. Anyway, the place where she lived before was arranged by Ryosuke Yagamai for her, and now it's just a different place. Besides that, there are the 2 maids Yukito whom Ryosuke Yagamai captured earlier. It has been a long time since Yukito came to Konoha. 693 was quite uncomfortable at first. I didn't even dare to go out. I just stayed in my room every day, thinking about what the future would be like. Occasionally, I miss Union Village and the days in Union Village. But I gradually adapted to the new environment. I even think living in Konoha is pretty good. Moreover, although this little bastard Ryosuke Yagamai always said that he wanted to train her to become a professional maid, he actually didn't do anything particularly excessive. He just asked her to serve tea and water, and learn how to make a fire and cook. Don't tell me, this was the first time Yamu discovered that he was quite talented in cooking. Those complicated dishes can be easily learned by myself after learning them twice. In the past, she wouldn't have even thought about it. After all, there were many restaurants in Union Village, and she was not short of money, so how could she cook by herself? But now, she is Yagamai Ryosuke's maid. As a maid, you naturally have to do a lot of things to serve people. For example, serving tea and water. And Yagamai Ryosuke would always tell some weird recipes, but he would not learn them himself, instead letting Yukito learn them. Yukito was quite unhappy at first. But one time she discovered the truth. It turns out that Ryosuke Yagamai, who seems to be omnipotent in her eyes, is actually a kitchen killer. That day, Yukito saw Yagamai Ryosuke working in the kitchen. He was quite curious at first, but before he even got closer, he smelled a strange smell coming from the kitchen. It's the kind of burnt smell mixed with some messy smells. At that time, everyone in Yamu was shocked. She always thought it was quite simple to make a fire and cook. But looking at Yagamai Ryosuke, who almost ordered the entire kitchen, she suddenly realized that it wasn't that it was easy to cook, but that she seemed to have a unique talent in this area. It was also from then on that Yukito became less resistant to learning those weird dishes. He also developed a hobby of cooking. Whenever I have nothing to do, I will research some new dishes in the kitchen. Ryosuke Yagamai was also very pleased with this. After all, this means that his little maid has been completely successfully cultivated. No. They have all begun to learn to strive for excellence on their own. Master, your tea. In the yard. Yagamai Ryosuke is holding a comic book and enjoying it. This is a new serial published by a famous cartoonist in the Land of Fire. It depicts a world where there are no ninjas, only samurai. This world it is also full of various monsters, and monsters can eat people, so humans have built cities surrounded by high walls and live in isolation. Samurai are the only beings in this world who have the ability to kill monsters. To be honest, Ryosuke Yagami felt that the background setting of this comic was a bit familiar. However, there was nothing particularly familiar about the plot. It was quite interesting. So he had been reading this comic recently. At this time, he came over with a cup of tea. Yamuren also walked up to him. "Let it go." Ryosuke Yagami pointed to the side and said. Hearing this, Yukito also put the steaming tea aside. Then he took the initiative and sat down on his knees. "Master, can I give you a shoulder massage?" Yukito said. Ryosuke Yagami glanced at her and nodded with a smile. "Okay." Hearing this, Yukito put his skilled hands on Yagami Ryosuke's shoulders, kneading them gently and sometimes heavily, very professionally. Half an hour later, Yagami Ryosuke patted Yukito's shoulders. "The back of my hand indicates that I can stop. Master, do you have any other instructions?" Yamuren sat on his knees and asked. "Go get some fruit." Ryosuke Yagami said. "Okay, master." Yukito stood up, turned around and walked towards the house. At this time, his mother Yagami Mitsuki also passed by and shook her head helplessly when she saw this scene. You know how to command Yamuren." Mizuki Yagami scolded Ryosuke Yagami angrily. Ryosuke Yagami also smiled. Mother Mitsuki Yagami seemed to like Yukito. You must know that Yukito was captured by Ryosuke Yagami. She was a prisoner here, but after getting along with her for a long time, she also found that Yukito was a pretty good kid. He was not as reckless and vulgar as Kumagakure. Instead, he was very polite. Moreover, Tomoko Moruomu, Yagami Mitsuki could see it. The son does not really just think Yukito is an ordinary servant. How could she, a mother, not see the little thoughts of this boy? Therefore, in the eyes of Yagami Mitsuki, Yukito is also one of the future daughters-in-law. But young people like to play. She doesn't understand the master and maid games, and it's not convenient for her to participate. She will say a few words about her son when she sees her. But she doesn't know how to play. I really have to stop my son from bossing around Yukito. Didn't I see that both of them are very happy? As a mother, she just needs to take a look. When they are young, it is better for elders like them to be less involved. A week has come quickly. Today, for the first time, the Yagami mansion is as lively as today. Even when I first moved into a new home last time, there were not so many guests as this time. In the yard, a long table is placed, covered with a white gold-edged tablecloth. Some chefs and waiters in professional clothes are busy. These are the chefs and waiters that Ryosuke Yagami called from the Chinese restaurant he opened. To read cool novels, go to Fila Novel Network. Didn't Yagami Ryosuke let Yukito learn those Chinese dishes before? After that, he thought that teaching someone is also teaching, and Yukito can't be busy alone. Come on, you can't cook too much food. So Yagami Ryosuke finally had an idea and opened a Chinese restaurant directly in Konoha. He arranged for a shadow clone to teach a group of chefs how to cook Chinese food. Don't say, although their talents are not as good as Yamuren. But after all, they are all professionals in this field, and they still have abilities and talents. Therefore, they all learn very quickly. Soon they are doing well. What a pity. Yagami Ryosuke didn't memorize many dishes in his previous life. There were only about 20 kinds of dishes. Fortunately, Yukito was talented. He actually developed more than a dozen more Chinese dishes based on the Chinese dishes Yagami Ryosuke taught her. A variety of different dishes. They all taste pretty good. The Chinese restaurant opened by Ryusuke Yagamai in Konoha has been very prosperous from its opening to now. If it weren't for the high consumption of his Chinese restaurant, a meal would be if it's more expensive than a good barbecue meal, the business will be better. But today the Chinese restaurant will be closed for the day. Who let the chefs and waiters in the store be dragged home by Yagamai Ryusuke? The table. Go up. Plates of beautifully plated delicacies with alluring aromas were brought to the table one after another. As the host, Ryusuke Yagamai also greeted everyone to eat and drink well. Wait until after 3 rounds of drinking. The plates on the table were changed several times. Yagamai Ryusuke also knocked on the wine glass, making a crisp sound, attracting the attention of everyone present to look at him. You must be wondering why I invited you to my home for dinner today, right? Ryusuke Yagamai said. Hearing this, these people here are indeed quite curious. But some people have already guessed the reason. In fact, the main reason for inviting everyone to my home for dinner today is to announce something. Ryusuke Yagamai said, looking at 11 Yan and the 4 of them sitting next to him. Then, he also announced the news about his engagement to the 4 of them. Everyone present also laughed after hearing the news. Clap your hands and congratulate them. How amazing! Kakashi looked at the 5 people in a harmonious atmosphere over there, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Speaking of which, he also got a girlfriend recently. But Kakashi, who has been single for so many years, really doesn't like having someone around him suddenly. Women come out. And he doesn't know any sweet words, nor does he create any romance. He even occasionally gets cold feet because he said some wrong things. However, his girlfriend has always been very tolerant of Kakashi's shortcomings. For this reason Kakashi was also quite touched. Since the burden of this Sharingan dropped, Kakashi found that his life seemed to be moving in a better direction. Not only the improvement in strength. Even life, there have also been many changes with each passing day. Today I saw Ryusuke Yagamai and Yujao getting engaged. Kakashi was also thinking about what would happen when he got engaged in the future, and couldn't help but become a little lost in thought. At this moment, there was a burst of crying next to him, which brought Kakashi back to reality from his fantasy. He turned around and saw his friend Metkai with tears streaming down his face. He was crying and laughing at the same time, and was still trying hard. Applause. Kakashi. If I had known better, I wouldn't have sat next to this guy. Kakashi was speechless, he didn't know what to cry about. So touching, Kakashi. Aren't you moved? As Metkai cried, he also pulled Kakashi, trying to make him cry with him. When Kakashi saw it, he quickly waved his hand. No, 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 I'm quite touched, but Akai, are you exaggerating? No. This is youth. Metkai shouted. Kakashi. Hey hey hey. Keep your voice down. Everyone is looking over here. However, those who came to dinner today are all friends, and none of them know Metkai's character. 5.7. Therefore, it is not surprising that Metkai looks like this. He just somewhat sympathized with Kakashi sitting next to him. Wait until you are full of wine and food. Most of the guests also said goodbye and left. Finally, only 2 guests, Tsunade and Shizuan, were left in the villa. I said, you are so fast. Tsunade sat on the sofa without any image. Shizuan, who was holding Dodo next to her, winked desperately at Tsunade and asked her to change her sitting posture a little. Don't sit with her arms stretched out. What does she look like? It's a pity. Tsunade didn't see Shizuan's eyes at all. Now, wake up. Yagamai Ryusuke took the 2 cups of tea handed by Yukito and handed one to Tsunade. Tsunade took a sip of tea and looked at Yukito, who was standing behind Yagamai Ryusuke holding the tray. He curled his lips. This guy, he really has a way of dealing with women. So, you are about to start a family, Do you have any thoughts on what I mentioned before? Tsunade drank a few sips of hot tea, then looked at Yagami Ryusuke and asked. Hearing this, Yagami Ryusuke also couldn't laugh or cry and said, Sister Tsunade, are you so unwilling to be the Hokage? It's not that I'm not happy, but I think you are more suitable to be Hokage than me, and the village needs a Hokage like you to lead everyone. Tsunade said with a serious look. If Ryusuke Yagami didn't know very well what kind of person her sister Tsunade is, she might have believed her lies. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 213. What village needs a Hokage like him? It was obvious that he felt that being Hokage was too troublesome. Every time he sneaked out to gamble, he would be scolded by Shizune and Narashikaku, so he saw that Ryusuke Yagami was now 14. That's why Tsunade couldn't wait to hand over the position of Hokage to Ryusuke Yagami. And she herself can completely put aside these troublesome things and happily become her Konoha gambling god? Let's wait until some time to talk about Naruto's affairs. I've been quite busy recently, as you know. Ryusuke Yagami spread his hands and said. You know, isn't it about the engagement with Hinata and Yamanaka? Tsunade rolled her eyes at him angrily and said, then it's settled. When you finish the engagement, I will hand over the position of Hokage to you. It's settled. When did we make it settled? Seeing Tsunade finish talking to herself and then running away with Shizune, Ryusuke Yagami also shook his head speechlessly. This guy Tsunade, I'm afraid she is the one who wants to get rid of this position the most among all the Hokages in the past, right? Even if it is a big pillar that is also unreliable, it will not be like her. It's like there are thorns on the Hokage's chair, and I can't wait to get rid of it. Pass this chair to Ryusuke Yagami. Master, will you become the Hokage of Konoha in the future? Yamu asked curiously. Let's talk about this, being Hokage is quite troublesome. Ryusuke Yagami said. Of course. In fact, it's troublesome to say it's troublesome, but it's not troublesome to say it's not troublesome. After all, if Tsunade leaves things to other people she trusts, then naturally he, the Hokage, doesn't have to be so busy. Oh my god. Who would be like Naruto, who is so busy that he doesn't even have time to go home for dinner? Is that called Hokage? Even if he is not the ultimate worker. Speaking of Naruto, Yagami Ryusuke also thought, get up, I heard Tsunade say before that Naruto and Jiraiya seem to be back soon. I don't know how much Naruto has grown over the years. With Jiraiya 26 practicing outside, Naruto must have suffered a lot, right? However, the Naruto of this world works much harder than the original Naruto. He is not so naughty and mischievous. Before he went out to practice with Jiraiya, his strength was already very good. Now he has been practicing for so long. In terms of strength, must be much stronger than Naruto at this time in the original work, right? Kawakuni, somewhere. In a small town after the rain, Naruto was holding a piece of bread in one hand and eating it angrily. The stinky and lustful immortal left me alone and ran away again, and even took my wallet. I was so angry. Naruto was too tired from practicing yesterday, so he got up a little late today. When he got up and went to call the Sennin, he was told by the hotel attendant that he had already checked out and left a note for him. Naruto, see you in Kawano town, the land of fire. Just left such a note. The key point was that when Naruto returned to the room, he found that his wallet was missing. You don't need to think about it to know that it must have been taken away by the lustful immortal. After all, this isn't the first time. Fortunately, because he had been taken away several times, Naruto also learned to be smart. This time he secretly hid some money elsewhere. Otherwise, he would even have trouble eating now. Damn lecherous immortal, when I get to Kawano town, I will definitely ignore him for 3 days. 3 days is a bit long, so just ignore him for 1 day. Naruto thought angrily. At this moment, the curtain of a shop on the roadside in front was suddenly opened. Followed by a man wearing a black-red cloud windbreaker, a white dress underneath, and a black belt around his waist. The figure walked out of the store. As soon as the other party came out, Naruto subconsciously sensed something and looked over there. Sasuke. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. Next second. Sasuke. Naruto shouted and rushed over. Sasuke, who had just come out of the store to eat something, heard this all too familiar voice coming from behind him. He also stopped suddenly and turned around with a slightly changed expression. Go. Next second. Sasuke. Naruto hugged Sasuke. Very good. I thought I would never see you again. Naruto hugged Sasuke forcefully and said excitedly. The pupils in Sasuke's eyes were trembling slightly, and he reached out and patted Naruto's back gently. Naruto, let me go first, he said. Hearing this, Naruto also smiled awkwardly and let go of Sasuke. Sasuke, I'm sorry, I haven't seen you for a long time, so I'm a little excited, Naruto said with a smile while scratching the back of his head. Sasuke looked at Naruto, who had grown much taller in front of him, and smiled and shook his head. Naruto, long time no see, Sasuke said. It's been a long time, Sasuke. How are you doing with your teacher? Has anyone bullied you? Naruto smiled, and then asked quickly. Hearing this, Sasuke shook his head and said, No, the teacher is very good to me. People in the organization are very busy, and no one will bully me. In fact, even if it's just for Uchiha Menma's sake, it's impossible to bully Sasuke. After all, Uchiha Menma's strength is the strongest existence under the recognized leader in the Akatsuki organization. Killing them is like playing. Yes. How dare they bully other disciples? No matter how unruly they are, they still have brains. They are not fools. That's it, that's good. Naruto smiled and breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Sasuke in front of him and said, Sasuke, you have grown taller. So are you. Sasuke said with a smile, you used to be a little shorter than me, but now you are almost as tall as me. What the hell? When have I ever been shorter than you? We have always been about the same height. When Naruto heard this, he immediately became unhappy and argued. Seeing Naruto like this, Sasuke also smiled knowingly. It felt like he had gone back to the past, when they were still in Team 7. How have you been over the past year? Sasuke asked. The two of them walked. Very good, I have been practicing outside with the lustful immortal, Naruto said. Sasuke, I am much stronger now than before. Let me tell you, I also went to a place called Miyamu Mountain to practice and learn the Sage Mode there. Sage Mode. Sasuke vaguely remembers hearing his teacher mention this. It seems to be a very powerful ability. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Fila Novel Network. It can increase the power of ninjutsu. Naruto, you are not the only one who has become stronger over the past year or so, I am the same. Sasuke said. When it comes to the improvement of his strength, Sasuke will never think that he is any worse than Naruto. In more than a year, he has improved from the original special Jounin strength to the official Jounin strength, and then to the elite Jonin strength. Later, he learned the Thunder Release Kirin, and barely reached the threshold of Quasi Kage. But now, according to the teacher's evaluation, he is already a strong Kage level strength. Kage, that is the highest title of ninja villages in various countries. Of course, Sasuke did not become arrogant because of this. After all, who in the Akatsuki organization is not a strong person with a shadow level strength? Even the intern Fei is a shadow level strength. Sasuke has fought with Fei several times, but he has never won before. However, it was only after he received the evaluation of the teacher's shadow level that he could barely tie with a fei. In such an environment, how could Sasuke be arrogant? The conditions did not allow it. However, although there is no pride arrogant, but Sasuke is still very proud of the speed at which his strength has improved. Therefore, when Naruto said that his strength has improved a lot over the past year, Sasuke somewhat wanted to compare with Naruto. Look at the two of them whose strength has improved more. Outside the town, in a forest clearing more than 10 kilometers away. Sasuke, are you sure you want to compete with me? I am very strong now. Naruto looked at Sasuke opposite. They had just talked about the improvement of their strength. They both felt that they had improved more than the other, so Sasuke suggested that they have a fight. Let's see who loses and who wins. Come on, Naruto, I'm not the same person I was a year ago. Sasuke tossed it away and threw away the Akatsuki trench coat he was wearing. The law of death if you take off your clothes shouldn't apply to Sasuke, right? But Sasuke is not a formal member of the Akatsuki organization. He is just an intern. It should be. It won't work. Brush. Withdrawing the ninja sword from his waist, Sasuke's eyes changed. The blood-red 3 Megatama Sharingan eyes had been opened, and he was staring straight at Naruto who was more than 10 meters away. Well, I'm going to do it. Naruto is also full of fighting spirit. After not seeing each other for more than a year, he finally has the opportunity to compete with Sasuke. However, Naruto will not deliberately lose to Sasuke just because he has not seen him for a long time. That would be disrespectful to himself. Respect is also disrespect for Sasuke. Naruto will not do this kind of thing. Bring it on. The next second, the figures of the two disappeared in an instant. The two afterimages kept colliding in the air, and both of them obviously chose to take a look at each other's physical skills first. In addition to studying for more than a year, Sasuke, in addition to various thunder escape and fire escape ninjutsu, he also learned swordsmanship. Uchiha Menma taught him a swordsmanship that specializes in speed. If combined with thunder escape, he will not even lose to the White Fang swordsmanship in speed. And Sasuke is also quite talented in swordsmanship. At this time, he drew his sword and struck, and the speed of each sword was amazing. As soon as Naruto fought with Sasuke, he found that he was no match in terms of physical skills. The art of multiple shadow clones. Naruto instantly stepped back, and at the same time formed seals with his hands to perform his best shadow clone technique. In an instant, dozens of identical Narutos appeared around him. Naruto. 800 rounds. Naruto and dozens of his shadow clones shouted together, condensing a Rasengan in his hand, and all the Rasengans gathered together to form an extremely huge 810 Rasengan. This is Naruto in the Daima Rasengan. On the basis of this, a move with 800 consecutive bullets was developed. You can use a large number of shadow clones to attack the Rasengan together, or you can gather the Rasengans of all the shadow clones together to form a super large Rasengan to attack the target. But this time, Naruto chose the latter. Thunder escape swordsmanship. Give the ninja world a high score. Sasuke shouted softly, and the inexplicable embarrassment on his face flashed away. There was no way, the name of this move was really weird. He asked the teacher if he could change the name of this move. But the teacher said no. And what he said must be realistic. You can see how realistic the ghost is. How can the name of this sword technique be realistic? It can't give the ninja world a middle score at all. How could Sasuke know? This sword technique is unnaturally, his hands cannot be used to comb the middle part of the ninja world, but if it is in the hands of Ryosuke Yagami, let alone the middle part of the ninja world. Even if it is to split the ninja world in half, it will be easily. Boom! A huge explosion sounded in the open space. The moment Naruto's 800 rounds collided with Sasuke's ninja combination, the power of both parties exploded directly in mid-air. Come! And Sasuke, who had been mentally prepared for a long time, had already dodged in advance. As for Naruto, he didn't come up at all, it was just his shadow clone. The next second, the two figures performed various ninjutsu. Whether it was Sasuke's thunder release and fire release, or Naruto's various ball ninjutsu, they were all so powerful that very quickly, the forest around the clearing was struck by the aftermath of the battle between the two. It was razed to the ground. That's not all. Sasuke hasn't shown his true strength yet. But he also knows that Naruto hasn't either. Naruto, the warm-up session is over, now I'm going to get serious. Sasuke said. Haha. I'm ready to. Naruto said with a smile. He has been using shadow clones to accumulate Senjutsu chakra from the beginning. Now it is enough to use Sage mode. Kaleidoscope, open. Immortal mode, on. The two of them shouted loudly. The three Megatamashari non-eyes in Sasuke's eyes turned into the shape of a kaleidoscope in an instant, and powerful pupil power exploded. And Naruto also had the Senjutsu chakra energy in the Sage mode, a pair of an orange eyeshadow pattern appears around the eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 214. Immortal Method. Super Large Jade Spiral Pill. Flame Escape. Black Dragon Roaring Bullet. In the sky, the moment a huge fairy magic Raisnon collided with a huge black fire dragon, a bright white light instantly swallowed up everything around it. When the strong light dissipated, the roar of the explosion came as expected. It exploded like a thunderbolt. The terrifying shockwave directly destroyed everything within a kilometer away. After a moment, two figures fell into the forest that had been razed to the ground. Naruto, that's it for now. Sasuke said. Then he took the initiative to contact the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto on the opposite side also nodded and exited the Sage mode. In fact, both of them still have some useless cards. For example, Naruto's Nine Tails. Sasuke also used Susan. No way. After all, they are just competing. It is not a life and death fight. There is no need to fight so high. Sasuke, have you awakened the kaleidoscope? Naruto walked forward and said in surprise. Sasuke nodded. Well, actually, I just woke up not long ago. Sasuke said. Naruto, your Sage mode is also very strong. You are really good at various Raisnon ninjutsu. Naruto chuckled. He really likes the Raisnon ninjutsu. It doesn't require any seals, and it can be changed into different types of ninjutsu. Of course. The most important thing is that he doesn't need to use any seals. After all, he has too many seals. Slow down. After the fight and seeing their respective progress, the two also found a place to sit down and chat. They talked about some of their experiences in the past year or so. Sasuke told Naruto that he was an executive in the Akatsuki organization various missions, and briefly mentioned some members of the organization, but he did not mention Uchiha Itachi. After all, he can't beat Uchiha Itachi yet. Although Sasuke has also awakened the Mangekyo, Uchiha Itachi after all awakened much earlier than him. Therefore, whether it is his own strength or the use of kaleidoscope, he is stronger than him. But Sasuke is not in a hurry. He is only 14, and he is already a shadow level strength. Wait and see, in a year or two, he will definitely become stronger by then. By then, Uchiha Itachi will never be his opponent again. Naruto also talked about some of his experiences outside with the lustful immortal for more than a year. They have been to the land of snow, to the land of water across the sea, and to a place called Lulan. But strangely, Naruto didn't have much memory of Lulan. I just remember that the place was quite desolate. But for the careless Naruto, it doesn't matter if he doesn't remember these things. It's not an important matter anyway. The two sat on the floor and chatted, not feeling the passage of time. And on the other side, it was on a cliff a kilometer away from the two of them. Jiraiya was staring at the guy wearing a Uzumaki mask next to him, with a wary look on his face. People from Akatsuki organization. Jiraiya has been investigating this organization over the years. The clothes on the other party are obviously those of the Akatsuki organization. So the identity is self-evident. Ah! What a terrifying look, is this the legendary Toad Sage Jiraiya? Afei said with a funny look. Obito actually takes Jiraiya seriously. After all, this guy is very strong. He is also his teacher's teacher. Logically speaking, Obito should be called Jiraiya. It's right to call him master. However, he even killed his teacher and his wife, so how could he care about Jiraiya, the nominal master? He had never even seen Jiraiya before. His impression of Jiraiya, and it only stays in some paper information. Obito knew that Jiraiya was a pervert, and he also wrote a novel called That Heaven, which was very popular in the ninja world. To be honest, among ninjas, Jiraiya he is also a weirdo. From a ninja to a best-selling author. There is really no second person like him in the ninja world. At this time, Obito, who was being stared at by Jiraiya, felt a little uncomfortable. Although he knew this, no matter how strong the guy is, he can't hurt himself. After all, he has the experience of facing Minato Namikaze, so facing this teacher of Minato Namikaze. Obito has some psychological shadow in his heart. Guys from the Akatsuki organization, what secrets do you have? Jiraiya squinted his eyes and stared at the guy in front of him. Although the guy wearing the Uzumaki mask looks like a joke. But his intuition told Jiraiya that this guy was not simple. It was very likely that his funny personality was disguised, and this guy was also wearing a mask. This was clearly worn because he didn't want to be recognized. Therefore, Jiraiya doubted that this guy was a famous ninja in the ninja world. Otherwise, why would you wear a mask all day long? You see. Uchiha Menma, who was also wearing a mask at the beginning, later took off his mask. Uchiha Menma wore a mask simply because he didn't want to reveal his appearance, but later on he may have been too strong and found that he didn't need to hide at all, so he stopped wearing the mask. But the guy in front of me who calls himself Afei. It's really quite suspicious. Have I seen you? Jiraiya asked. Ah, Fei, I'm just a little person, but I don't know a great ninja like you, Toad Sennin. Woohoo. A big shot like Mr. Jiraiya will not understand the sadness of a small person. As he spoke, Afei started crying. But he didn't see any tears flowing out. Maybe it was covered by the mask. Looking at the crying Afei, to be honest, Jiraiya was a little suspicious that he was. Aren't you nervous? Is this guy who seems to be completely in tune really a threat to the ninja world? Is he a little too nervous recently? So he has an illusion? Just when Jiraiya thought to himself while he was sleeping, Obito in front of him was considering whether to kill Jiraiya now. After all, the existence of this guy is also a threat to his future plans. If he can be killed now, later, there is no need to worry. But after thinking about it, Obito gave up the idea. There was no other reason. He just felt that Jiraiya was difficult to kill. After all, his ability was mainly to save his life. In terms of attack, to be honest, Obito is not particularly good at it. To be honest, his wood release is just mediocre. It's okay to deal with some jonin. But when it comes to facing a cage-level strongman, it's somewhat powerless. And facing someone like Jiraiya, a strong man. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Fila Novel Network. It has no effect. Unless it is an unexpected sneak attack, taking advantage of Jiraiya not knowing his ability, giving him a fatal blow. But Again, Jiraiya was Namikaze Minato's teacher, and Namikaze Minato had left a serious psychological shadow on Obito, so he didn't dare to take risks. He was afraid that if the attack failed, Jiraiya would see some flaws. That's bad. Even if Jiraiya couldn't analyze the flaws in his abilities for a while, this would expose his own abilities. When Jiraiya returns to Konoha, won't his abilities be made public? Speaking of abilities, there was suddenly a burst of gnashing of teeth on Obito's face under the mask. It is said that about 4 months ago, he was wandering around in Shinwei space. He was in a complicated mood at that time, because he once went to Konoha Cemetery to pay homage to Lin, so he felt a little depressed and uncomfortable at the time. That's why I wander around in the Kamui space. As a result, while wandering around, he discovered that there was a line of writing on a pillar in Shinwei space. The words Kakashi Hatake is here for a visit are clearly written there. This made Obito instantly stunned. His first reaction was to leave the divine space quickly. After all, his virtualization ability only applies to the real space. In the divine space, he can transform into a ghost. But soon, Obito restrained this impulse, and then carefully observed the words on the pillar to make sure that he was not blinded, then he gritted his teeth and cursed Kakashi. Needless to say, Obito also thought that Kakashi must have used the eye he gave him to enter the divine space. After all, Kaleidoscope's abilities are often related to each other. For example, Sasuke's Amaterasu and Kagome Tome. As well as Uchiha Shisui's Eye's betrayal. It's all related. Certainly. There are also those that are not related, such as Itachi Uchiha's Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. But Obito knew that the abilities of his kaleidoscopes were most likely related. And this connection lies in this divine space. Therefore, if Kakashi discovers that his Sharingan is a Mangekyou and can connect to the Kamui space, he will definitely come in curiously to take a look. That is, based on Obito's understanding of Kakashi, this guy probably wouldn't leave such words in the Kamui space. If it was Uzumaki Naruto, Obito felt there was nothing wrong with him. But Kakashi. To be honest, this was a bit childish for him. However, Obito also discovered that Kakashi seemed to have changed a lot recently. Even the last time he went to Konoha, he discovered that Kakashi actually had a girlfriend. It's so tacky to death. He felt that Kakashi had let down Rin's love for him. Although Obito doesn't want Rin to like a guy like Kakashi at all. But he couldn't change Lin's mind. At least in Obito's opinion, Rin liked Kakashi. And now, Kakashi actually found a girlfriend, and Obito was so angry that he almost couldn't help but kill the woman. Fortunately, Obito held back. Otherwise, he might be shocked. Because Obito didn't know that every time he went to Konoha, there was actually a pair of eyes staring at him. If he dares to do anything evil, Obito will definitely suffer. Fortunately, Obito didn't mess around. Only then did he save his small life. After all, the virtualization ability he relies on is completely useless in front of Ryosuke Yagamai, who has the entry of the god of space. Not to mention, Ryosuke Yagamai can also enter the Kamui space. It would be even more impossible for Obito to escape. With all kinds of thoughts running through his mind, Obito finally gave up on attacking Jiraiya here. Jiraiya also tested this Afe and found that he really seemed to be a funny guy with a brain problem. No matter how you look at it, he doesn't look like a well-hidden conspirator. After all, if he was really that kind of conspirator, he shouldn't be able to pretend to be so funny, right? If it is really possible, then Jiraiya can only say that the other party's acting skills are really superb. Countless times more powerful than the old man. How did Jiraiya know that Afe, Li Dihao, and Obito are actually two different individuals? Therefore, Afe, who has always acted funny, is actually the real Afe, but Obito wears a clothes called Afe. Actually, it's two people. if Baiju can be called a human being. Therefore, Obito does not need any acting skills. Because the funny Afe is the real Afe. This guy is like this. Whether he talks or behaves, he is very idiotic. But this is exactly what Obito wants. Such an idiot and funny Afe. Who would suspect that this is him Uchiha Madara pretending to be? Hey! Sasuke is leaving. No, 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 Faye has to follow Sasuke, but he can't let Sasuke run back alone, otherwise Faye will definitely be scolded by Menmasama again. Faye muttered to himself, and then quickly moved towards the bottom of the cliff. Jiraiya saw this and did not stop him. Firstly, he did not know the details of this member of the Akatsuki organization who called himself a Fae, and secondly, if the other party is really not a hidden boss, then he is just a small role in the Akatsuki organization at best. It is not worth his efforts. However, it's time to take a trip to the Akatsuki organization. Jiraiya thought to himself. Then he looked at the open space in the distance and saw that Naruto, who had just said goodbye to Sasuke, was also leaving in the direction of the Land of Fire, so he followed him. For the time being, he was currently the most important thing is to take Naruto back to Konoha first. As for the Akatsuki organization, let's wait until he returns to Konoha. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 215. 2 days later. Sasuke and Faye returned to the Akatsuki organization's base in Yuyan village. As soon as the two came back, they met the two immortal duo Haiden and Kakuzu who were traveling together. Yo! Isn't this Sasuke-kun? He's back from a mission. Haiden greeted Sasuke with a smile. He didn't like Uchiha Itachi, but he was very friendly to Sasuke who was also hostile to Uchiha Itachi and even wanted to cut him into pieces. Well, just got back. Sasuke nodded. He has known Haiden and Kakuzu for a long time. Kakuzu is a guy who only knows how to make money and is not interested in socializing. But Haiden's personality is somewhat similar to that of Faye. Of course, he is not as good as Faye. So funny. And he also has a certain amount of goodwill toward himself, so Sasuke doesn't mind making more friends, not to mention that the other person is also very strong. That's just right. The leader has informed us of a meeting. You and Faye should come together. Haiden said. Meeting. Sasuke was stunned for a moment and nodded. To be honest, this is the first time he has participated in such an internal meeting since joining the Akatsuki organization. On the one hand, he is just an intern. If it weren't for the teacher is Uchiha Menma, who has no status at all in a place like the Akatsuki organization. On the other hand, the Akatsuki organization is not the kind of organization that meets frequently. And most of the time, they are contacted through the phantom body jutsu. Directly at the base it is really rare for a meeting to be held inside. Stamp stamp, the sound of footsteps came one after another. The appearance of figures wearing black and red cloud windbreakers also meant that the Akatsuki organization's first full-scale meeting this year, the member meeting, is about to begin. At this time, even interns like Faye and Sasuke are allowed to be present to observe. After all, whether it is Faye or Sasuke, their strength is not bad. They are both cage level. Moreover, among them, Afe, if others don't know it, how can Nagato and Konan not know it? This is simply the impersonation of the man who calls himself Uchiha Madara. As for whether the other party is the real Uchiha Madara, to be honest, this point none of it matters. Sasuke, where is your teacher? After Haiden and Kakuzu both came in, Haiden 250 also looked around. When he didn't find Uchiha Menma, he also asked Sasuke next to him. I don't know, but the teacher should be in the base. Sasuke shook his head. He had just come back from outside. Who knew where the teacher was? When Haiden heard this, he was about to continue saying something. At this moment, Haiden, Do you have a problem with me? A figure appeared strangely behind Haydn, startling Haydn. Ah! Mr. Menma is still so elusive. Haydn patted his chest and said. Uchiha Menma looked at him calmly and said nothing. Teacher. Suzuki on the side also came over and stood behind Uchiha Menma. Uchiha Menma looked at his disciple and nodded slightly. Ah! It feels like Menma-san has become stronger. A face still looked funny, but the face under the mask showed a solemn expression. Even I didn't find out how this Uchiha Menma appeared just now, this guy. Obito couldn't help but feel a little wary. Although he invited Menma Uchiha, his original intention was to let this member of his family monitor Nagato. But now, Obito discovered that this guy's strength had grown beyond his control. It's not about strength. After all, in terms of strength, Uchiha Menma has long surpassed him. But with the ability to blur, Obito has always been confident in himself. But today, even he was not aware of how the other party appeared. If the other party had the intention to attack him, wouldn't he not even know how to die? Certainly. Obito can hide in the Kamui space anytime and anywhere. But he couldn't hide forever. When the 5 minutes were up, he would always come out. If the opponent catches this weakness of his and relies on this elusive ability, he may be able to catch him in an instant and give him a fatal blow when he leaves the divine space, right? Fortunately, this Uchiha Menma never seemed to show any hostility, Chad, towards him. At least for the time being, they won't be enemies. In fact, Obito's feeling is indeed correct. The Uchiha Menma in front of them was indeed much stronger than before. The reason why this happened is because Yagami Ryuzuki just recovered the wooden clone that was originally pretending to be Uchiha Menma yesterday, and the current Uchiha Menma is the new wooden clone he just separated. It's synchronized with part of his body's strength. The reason why it is partially is because many of Yagami Ryuzuki's abilities cannot be reflected in the wooden clone. To put it simply, it means that Mudun cannot carry such a powerful force. But even so, the wooden clone in front of him still has 1000 shadow level chakra in his body. At the same time, the Samsara Eye and Reincarnation Eye abilities in the 3 Megatama state can be turned on. In terms of strength, it is also at the peak of the 6th path. As for Ryusuke Yagami's body, his Samsara Eye has already evolved to the state of 6 Megatama in the past period of time, relying on the guidance of the Megatama Samsara Eye. However, after reaching the 6 Megatama state, it is quite time-consuming to improve another Megatama. If you want to reach the 9 Megatama state, I'm afraid you have to wait at least 10 years. Fortunately, this evolution does not require Ryusuke Yagami to do anything on his own. Otherwise, it would take more than 10 years to do this. What a waste. After all, even a pair of 9 Megatama Samsara Eyes would not have much effect on Yagami Ryuzuki's strength improvement. Normally, if the level of the Rinnegan is increased, Ryusuke Yagami's Rinnegan chakra mode will also be improved, and the increase in strength will be stronger. But in fact, the chakra mode of the Reincarnation Eye is about balance. If the Reincarnation Eye is too strong and the Reincarnation Eye cannot keep up, it will break the balance. It has no benefit in improving strength. The current state of the 6 Megatama Reincarnation Eye has far exceeded the Reincarnation Eye. Yagami Ryusuke even needs to actively suppress the power of the Rinnegan in order to maintain the balance of the Rinnegan's chakra mode. Not only will the power run rampant. Fortunately, Yagami Ryusuke also recently found a solution to this problem. It's actually quite simple. The key lies in the huge golden Reincarnation Eye inside the moon. Ryusuke Yagami discovers that he can enhance his own reincarnation by absorbing the power of this giant reincarnation. If he could absorb all the power of this huge Reincarnation Eye, the power of his Reincarnation Eye may directly surpass the current 6 Megatama Samsara Eye, and may even be stronger than the 9 Megatama Samsara Eye in its complete form, which is not impossible. However, the power of the giant reincarnation eye is not absorbed that quickly. When Yagami Ryuzyuk's Rinnegan evolved into the 3 Magatama state, he awakened a brand new ability, which can shrink any object except life within the visual range. The minimum diameter can be reduced to 1 picometer. A picometer is a unit smaller than a nanometer. To read exciting novels, go to Feel a Novel Network. 1 picometer is equivalent to 1/1,000,000th of a meter. Even the most high-tech picometer of the previous generation could not see objects 1 picometer in size, because the limit of the current picometer microscope can only see objects 45 picometer in size. No matter how small it is. And Yagami Ryuzyuk can use his magic to shrink objects to 1 picometer, let alone see it with the naked eye. Even Ryusuke Yagami's 6 Magatama Rinnegan can't be seen. It's just because he used magic to shrink it, so he can sense the opponent's existence. This ability is very similar to Otsutsuki Ishiki's Xiaoning Vigana. But it is much stronger than Xiaoming Vigana. At least Otsutsuki Ishiki's Xiaoning Vigana couldn't shrink an object to this extent. Ryusuke Yagami was able to shrink to such a small size because of the power bonus of the pupil technique of the entry. Therefore, Ryusuke Yagami also named his ability Xiaoning Vigana. Mainly too lazy to name. Then, when Ryusuke Yagami's Rinnegan evolved into the 6 Magatama, he awakened 2 new divine arts. One is the Daiko Kyuten of the Otsutsuki style. It just works well with Xiaoming Vigana. Yagami Ryusuke didn't know what Otsutsuki Ishiki's Mahakala looked like. Anyway, his Mahakala ability could not only be used to store objects shrunk by Shonamai Vigana. Even the space inside is like a small world. There is heaven and earth, and as long as Ryusuke Yagami is willing, light will appear out of thin air in the space, which can illuminate the entire small world. And people can live in it. Because there is air circulation here. The size of the entire Mahakala space is even more exaggerated. Yagami Ryuzyuk even feels that he can directly take in the entire shinobi world without shrinking it, and there will be no problem. Obviously, this is another change brought about by the addition of entries. Except Mahakala. There is another magical technique that Ryusuke Yagami has never heard of. It's called Buddha-Yahun. Using this magic, you can instantly cut all living and non-living bodies within the visual range, and can achieve billions of cuts in an instant, and can cut the target into particles as small as 1 nanometer. It's a pretty terrifying ability. Ryusuke Yagami has tried it. As long as the target is within the visual range, no matter how hard the material is, it can be cut open instantly, as if they were originally separated. As for the life forms, he only briefly tested them. We haven't found a limit yet. But there must be a limit, otherwise wouldn't it be that if you had this ability, you would be invincible? It's just that for the time being, Yagami Ryuzyuk doesn't have a suitable target to test its limits. But even if there is a limit, the limit of this ability should be extremely high. At least at the god level, there's a high probability that there's nothing it can't cut. Buddha taming Hun. This magical technique is the awakening of the 6 Magatama Samsara Eye. The wooden clone cannot use it. It is obviously unable to withstand the huge power of the 6 Magatama Samsara Eye. However, even so, Menma Uchiha pretending to be a wooden clone would still give them a natural sense of oppression just by standing in front of people like the Akatsuki organization. This was not intentional by Menma Uchiha, but an instinctive reaction by Menma Uchiha as their bodies were resisting and fearing Uchiha Menma because the life level gap between the two parties was too large. Do you think I eat, drink and have fun every day? Uchiha Menma glanced at Afe lightly, giving him a strong sense of oppression. Afe laughed a few times and didn't dare to speak. Even if he was teasing a white zetsu like Afe, he was a little afraid of Uchiha Menma at this time. Moreover, it may be because Afe is Baiju, so the sense of oppression on the life level is more intuitive. Otherwise, Afe's funny character would never be able to calm down so quickly. Fei on the side Duan glanced at Afe, then touched his nose, and looked at Uchiha Menma with a little fear, and suddenly did not dare to speak. At this moment, two more figures walked in. They had been standing quietly just now. Sasuke behind Uchiha Menma also looked at one of them with hatred. Uchiha attack. Sasuke clenched his fists with both hands. To be honest, he met Uchiha Itachi from time to time in the Akatsuki organization base, and he had been working hard for more than a year. The source of motivation to improve his strength. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to awaken these kaleidoscopes so quickly. Of course, this is even more inseparable from the teacher's cultivation. If the teacher hadn't used illusions to stimulate him from time to time, his pupil power would have increased. It won't be so fast. Moreover, the teacher's illusion is very magical. After the illusion is over, he will not remember what he experienced in the illusion at all. He only knows that his pupil power has increased a lot. Then he stimulated it a dozen times. Come down. Sasuke's kaleidoscope awakened easily. In fact, this ability to forget is the fundamental reason why Sasuke's kaleidoscope awakened so quickly. Like Uchiha Itachi, he used Tsukuyomi to replay the genocide again and again. Nights are useless. After all, only the first time of the same experience will be particularly unforgettable. But the more you experience it, the more exciting it becomes. But what if you forget everything you experienced before? Then every time the experience becomes the first experience. The effect is doubled immediately. P.S. The second update is here. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 216. Sasuke. Uchiha Itachi, who had just come in, also had a flash of his eyes. He caught a glimpse of his brother looking at him with hatred on his face, and couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. I heard that Sasuke had awakened the Mangekyo, so it seemed like it was time for him to know the truth. Uchiha Itachi thought to himself. In fact, his health has been getting worse and worse over the years. Although it can last another 3 or 4 years. But now that Sasuke has awakened the Mangekyo, there is no need to hold on any longer. Next time, Uchiha Itachi planned to ask Sasuke out alone, and then take this opportunity to let him know the truth about the night of genocide. Certainly. This so-called truth is just the truth that Itachi Uchiha wants Sasuke to know. He would not let Sasuke see those contents that were not good for Konoha. Moreover, before that, if he discovers that Sasuke has thoughts that are not good for Konoha, he will also use the Aishisui left for him to let Sasuke protect the village on his behalf forever. I believe Sasuke will understand his painstaking efforts. After all, I'm doing this for his own good. Uchiha Itachi thought. Uchiha Itachi. Just wait, the day of revenge is coming soon. Sasuke clenched his fists with both hands and swore silently in his heart. At this time, all the members of the Akatsuki organization have arrived. In the past year or two, no one of them has come together like this. After all, everyone is very busy and working in their respective fields. Busy with their own things, like Kakuzu, who is running around to make money every day, and others are similar. At this time, the figure of the leader Pain also appeared in front of everyone together with Zionin. Pain's pair of purple the Rinnegan eyes swept across the Akatsuki members present indifferently, paused for a moment on Menma Uchiha, and then said. Everyone, after these years of development, our Akatsuki organization is finally entering a second new stage. Pen's voice rang in each of their ears. Many people couldn't help but start to get excited, like Haydn, who was laughing weirdly and looking nervous. Sasuke looked at this person curiously, the leader of the Akatsuki organization. To be honest, this was the first time he had seen this legendary leader. When he noticed Pain's purple samsara eyes, although Sasuke didn't know what kind of eyes they were, he instinctively felt that they were his eyes are very powerful. Much more powerful than his kaleidoscope. What kind of eyes are these? Sasuke thought curiously. As for what Pain said about the second stage of the Akatsuki organization, Suzuki didn't care. After all, he was not a brainwashed member who was pulled into the Akatsuki organization. It was because of his teacher Uchiha Menma's relationship, so he became an intern member of the Akatsuki organization. To be honest, from the bottom of his heart, Suzuki still thinks that he is a ninja of Konoha. After all, the people he cares about the most are there. Therefore, for the third point mentioned by Leader Pain in the second stage, he had no interest in understanding at all, and his focus was all on the eyes of the Leader Pain. Regarding the second phase of the organization's mission, Zionin, please explain. Pen said to Konan beside her. Konan nodded, and after sweeping her cold eyes over everyone present, she said the second phase of our Akatsuki organization's mission is to officially start collecting tailed beasts. When the power of the nine-tailed beasts is gathered, the ultimate weapons of the nine-tailed beasts will be used to make the ninja world feel pain and make them understand the importance of peace. Next, everyone will receive different tasks, requiring each group of you to capture different tailed beasts. Conan paused for a moment as he said this. His eyes scanned the people present, and finally landed on Uchiha Menma. He was the only one who looked the calmest. Uchiha Menma, you and Ahi go to Sunagakure village, and Ichibai Shikaku will be left to you. Konan said. This was what she and Nagato had discussed before. The sealing work of the nine-tailed beasts must be done in order from one tail to 9 tails. Therefore, the first thing they have to capture is the one-tailed Shikaku. But the problem also arises. After the first tail comes the second tail. But the Jinhyuriki of the second tail's brigade was captured by Ryusuke Yagamai and taken to Konoha, and he is still in Konoha now. It is said that she became the maid beside Ryusuke Yagamai. This made Konan and Nagato a little worried. I wonder how we can capture the two-tailed Jinchuriki, Yukato and I, from Konoha? After all, that was the person next to Ryusuke Yagamai, the Shinigami of the shinobi world. No matter how arrogant Nagato is, he doesn't think he can easily snatch this two-tailed Jinhyuriki from the Shinigami of the shinobi world. Therefore, after Nagato discussed with Konan, he felt that Menma Uchiha, the strongest being in the organization besides Nagato, should be allowed to capture Ichibai Shikaku first. Then find a way to get the second tail. If that doesn't work, then we can only gather all the power of the Akatsuki organization to launch a strong attack. But in that case, it would mean that they had just failed to catch the second tail, and the entire strength of the organization was exposed. This is obviously very detrimental to the Akatsuki organization's plan. So, don't do it as a last resort. Nagato doesn't want to do this either, and that may not be successful. Capture the tailed beast. Suzuki, who just now was observing the Leader Pain's samsara eyes, was shocked when he heard what Konan said. The goal of the Akatsuki organization is to capture the nine-tailed beasts. This is the first time Suzuki knows that this is the ultimate goal of the Akatsuki organization. They are actually eyeing the terrifying ultimate weapon like the tailed beast. The key is, they actually plan to kill all nine-tailed beasts in one fell swoop. In this case, wouldn't Naruto be in danger? Suzuki couldn't help but feel worried for Naruto, but he quickly thought that Naruto had returned to Konoha and would not leave the village for a long time in the future. And Konoha has the great god Ryusuke Yagamai sitting in charge. Even the Akatsuki organization shouldn't dare to invade easily, right? No. I can't put all my hopes on Ryusuke. I must become stronger as soon as possible, so that I can stop the Akatsuki organization when they plan to harm Naruto. Suzuki thought. However, he soon thought of another question. What should he do if his teacher was going to take action against Naruto? Suzuki struggled for a while, and finally had no choice but to go to the bridge and get straight. Now, let's not think about this problem for now. Let's wait until then. Maybe he can convince the teacher not to take action against Naruto? Suzuki thought to himself. On the other side, Facing Konan's arrangement to capture Ichibai Shikaku, Menma Uchiha did not know matter what his opinion was, he nodded and agreed. They were just Tsunagaku, nothing more than ants. They were not taken seriously by him at all. Capturing Shikaku was too easy for Menma Uchiha. Chief, what about the second tail? Who will Airway send? Haiden raised his hand and asked loudly. He had just lost and he was still looking forward to it, wondering whether the leader would arrange for their immortal duo to capture Ichibai Shikaku. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to filunovels.net. As a result, the leader actually handed over this task to Uchiha Menma directly. If it were someone else, Haiden would definitely give his opinion at this time. But if it was Uchiha Menma, then Haiden can only admit it. But the two-tailed Jinchuriki must be captured by their immortal duo. Idiot, shut up. Kakuzu glanced at Haiden speechlessly. This idiot, doesn't he know that the two-tailed Jinchuriki is now in Konoha? Is that a place where the immortal duo can go? When he thinks of Ryosuke Yagamai, a kid as strong as a monster made Kakuzu's scalp numb. He even felt that this kid might now be as powerful as or even stronger than the ninja god Senju Hashirama. So, Haiden yelled when he was about to accept the task of capturing the second-tailed Jinchuriki. Kakuzu wanted to just kick him. This guy, are you really not asking for any information from the outside world? Following a famous ninja bounty hunter like Kakuzu, he didn't even know this bit of news. What a disgrace. Kakuzu, why did you hit me? Haiden looked at Kakuzu angrily. At this time, Pain, who was standing in front of everyone, also said calmly, as for the two tails, we will discuss this issue after we capture the first tail Shikaku. Hearing the leader's answer, Haiden was a little dissatisfied and wanted to give his opinion. In the end, he was kicked out by Kakuzu beside him. Bang! Haiden flew out and hit the wall. There was a click, hard. The rock walls are cracked. Kakuzu. Haiden was about to rush forward angrily. However, Pain and Hay stopped him. Enough. Stop messing around, Haiden. Pen's reincarnation eyes fell coldly on Haiden. This made Haiden freeze instantly. With an unhappy look on his face, he muttered something like "It's not fair, it's obviously me who was beaten," and walked to Kakuzu, glaring at him fiercely. Kakuzu didn't care, since Haiden wasn't in such a sick state for a day or two anyway. To be honest, he's used to it. Next, it's about. This meeting lasted for about an hour. Then everyone dispersed. Pain also left with Zionin and continued to think about how to capture Airway Brigade. On the other side, Suzuki, who was a little dizzy after stopping Pain's tirade, also asked the teacher about the leader's eyes after leaving the cave. He always felt that those eyes were very attractive to him. And there is a faint feeling of blood connection. Don't know why. You said the reincarnation eye. Uchiha Menma said calmly, those are the eyes of the legendary Six Paths Immortal, also known as Immortal Eyes. They are a pair of very powerful eyes. 99% of Pain's strength lies in those eyes above. Reincarnation eyes? Immortal eyes? Eyes of the Six Paths Immortal? This is the first time Suzuki has heard the name reincarnation eyes. He couldn't help but curiously ask the teacher, what kind of ability do these pairs of reincarnation eyes have to deserve such a title? Akanemima also briefly introduced some of the abilities of the Rinnegan eye to Suzuki. Anyway, his disciple will have the same eyes in the future. And it will be the more powerful Rokumagitama Rinnegan eye. It is the same as the current Rinnegan eye of Yagamai Ryosuke. Level. Of course. Yagamai Ryosuke's Rokumagitama Rinnegan eye is red, while Suzuki's subsequent Rokumagitama Rinnegan eye is purple. But to be honest, when it comes to the Rokumagitama state, the color difference in the Rinnegan eye is actually not that big. Well, at most there are some differences in abilities and emphasis. But in terms of pupil power, they are almost the same. Of course. There is still a difference between Yagami Ryosuke's pupil power and other 6 Megatama reincarnation eyes. The difference is not big. Only 65 times. After hearing the various abilities of the Rinnegan eye introduced by the teacher, Sasuke was amazed in his heart. Unexpectedly, such a powerful eye still exists in the ninja world. No wonder it is called the Immortal Eye. Indeed, they are so powerful. What are they if they are not immortal eyes? In comparison, the Mangekyo Sharingan does not seem to be that powerful. Of course, Sasuke only knows that this is just an illusion. In fact, the Mangekyo Sharingan is still very strong. After all, Sasuke himself has these eyes, so he naturally knows how powerful the kaleidoscope is. There is just a problem: the kaleidoscope is strong, but if you use it too much, you will go blind. This is a bit disgusting. Sasuke complained more than once, but why was there no problem at all when I was using San Megatama before? But when I got to kaleidoscope, I had such serious side effects. That's blindness. If I were blind, wouldn't my strength plummet by 90%? Reply entering the room. Uchiha Menma turned to look at Sasuke, who was still following him. Is there anything else? He asked. After hearing this, Sasuke couldn't help but said after hesitating for a moment, "Teacher, if the Akatsuki organization wants to order the arrest of Naruto, can I ask the teacher not to take action?" Naruto. Uchiha Menma understood instantly. He thought that the relationship between Sasuke and Naruto is still so good. Even if they haven't seen each other for more than a year, they still care about each other so much. However, Uchiha Menma doesn't know that Sasuke and Naruto are still together. They just met once 2 days ago. The two also discussed how to improve their respective strengths. By the way, they blew up a small forest. Of course. This is a basic operation for high-level ninjas. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 217. Naruto. Ken. Uchiha Menma nodded and agreed to the request of his disciple. He would never take action against Naruto. After all, he is just a clone of Yagami Ryosuke. The so-called Uchiha Menma is just a fake, it's just an identity. And, don't you just need Ninetales chakra? How simple it is. It's not a problem at all. Sasuke also looked happy when he heard that the teacher agreed to his request. Sorry, teacher. Sasuke bowed respectfully and thanked him. He knew that his request would definitely cause trouble to the teacher. But the teacher still agreed. So Sasuke's thanks this time are definitely from the bottom of his heart. Is there anything else? Uchiha Menma asked. Sasuke shook his head. These two things were the only things he cared about. Now that he has finished speaking, there is naturally nothing else to ask. Then go practice, your strength is far from enough. Uchiha Menma said. Seeing that the Akatsuki organization has planned to capture the tailed beasts in advance, then it is conceivable that the Fourth Ninja World War will come early. If Sasuke does not reach the Super Shadow level by then in that case in the battle, we can only fight with soy sauce. Of course. As the reincarnation of Indra's chakra, I believe that even if Sasuke doesn't do his best, the Sage of Six Paths will come to cheat him. But cheating, it's good, but if you don't have strong strength, even if you cheat, your strength may not be as good as that in the original work. Not to mention 1, 6, 7 Naruto has been working hard to practice and improve his strength. In terms of cheating, Naruto is no worse than Sasuke. Don't let Naruto's strength directly crush Sasuke. In that case, the teacher's face doesn't look that bright either. Tsunagakura Village. Ever since the last time Ryosuke Yagami drove a super wooden man around the entrance of the village and then shamefully paid a large amount of compensation, Tsunagaku or Murakami. I have been holding my breath since then. The enthusiasm for training in the entire village can be said to be unprecedentedly high. Because of this, in just over a year, many talented ninjas have emerged in Tsunagaku village. The most dazzling among them, they are undoubtedly the three children of the fourth generation Kazekage Raza. More than a year ago, Temari and Kankuro's strength could only reach the Chuyunin level. But today, more than a year later, whether it is Temari or Kankuro, all have the strength of a formal Jounin. Especially Temari. She has been practicing crazily every day for more than a year. She is even more powerful than Kankuro, and can even fight against some elite Jounin. Her strength has already better than most of the official Jounin. However, compared with the two of them, Gaara's progress can only be said to be even greater. Since he was defeated in Konoha, and then encountered Ryosuke Yagamaya, the threat of the Super Wooden Man. This made Shikaku in Gaara's body become much more honest than before. He even began to cooperate with Gaara and help him improve his strength. For no other reason than to encounter that kind of thing again. When it comes to enemies, Gaara can run faster. After all, his uncle Shikaku doesn't want to be buried with Gaara. Therefore, in just over a year, Gaara now has an elite Jounin under normal circumstances. Level strength. And once you use the power of a tailed beast and enter the tailed beast state, your strength can even reach the shadow level. It can be said that in the entire Sand Hidden Village, Gaara is now the only shadow level strongman. After all, Cho, the last cage level strongman, also died at the hands of Ryosuke Yagamai, which put Tsunagaku village into an embarrassing situation without a cage level strongman. Fortunately, they still have Gaara. Although Gaara's character and temper are a bit bad, but with Gaara in charge of the village, at least they Tsunagaku won't be able to defeat some young ninjas. Yes. For more than a year, the senior officials of Tsunagaku village have been worried about the status of their village. They were replaced by some small ninja villages that they once looked down upon. Although the strength of those small ninja villages was not as good as theirs who were seriously injured. But what if these small ninja villages united? Fortunately, they still have Gaara. Therefore, over the past year, Gaara's status in the village has also improved a lot. Even because he has not been baptized by Naruto's mouth release, Gaara's character has not changed much. But now he is in the village, everyone is no longer afraid of him like in the past. Occasionally, someone will even greet him with a smile. This makes Gaara quite uncomfortable, to be honest. On this day, somewhere in Tsunagaku village. Wind escape. Tornado hurricane. In an open space, a huge tornado roared across, rolling up a pair of dummies in the open space into the air. Then the dummies were shattered by the force of the hurricane. Seeing this scene, Temari Face, who was the instigator, Shang also showed a smile. Yes, this trick has finally been developed. Temari said with a smile. For more than a year, she has worked hard to practice and improve her strength. In order not to feel the same powerlessness again as she did more than a year ago. But now, her strength is compared to there was a huge improvement more than a year ago. If there is any danger again, Temari feels that she can also contribute her own small strength. Thinking of that day more than a year ago, the smile on Temari's face disappeared, immediately gone. Ryosuke Yagamai. She whispered the name that had been echoing in her mind for more than a year, and finally shook her head, getting rid of those unwanted thoughts from her mind. Keep practicing. Temari cheered up and prepared to continue today's practice. But at this moment, boom! A sudden loud noise came from the direction of the village entrance. What happened? Temari suddenly looked towards the village entrance with a surprised expression on her face. Is there an enemy invasion? Temari once again thought of the scene more than a year ago. Her expression changed involuntarily. Then, she quickly ran towards the entrance of the village. At this time, at the entrance of Tsunagaku village, a large number of Tsunagakure ninjas gathered. Here, everyone looked at the two figures walking in the distance with solemn expressions. They were wearing windbreakers with red clouds on a black background and hats on their heads. The crisp sound of bells floated in the wind. But at this moment, no one went back to appreciate it. At this crisp sound of bells, everyone looked solemnly at the big pit in front of them. At the bottom of the pit, there were still several mutilated corpses lying. They were all their Tsunagakure ninjas. Just now, these few Tsunagakure ninja who was patrolling near the entrance of the village discovered these two ninjas of unknown origin, so he stepped forward to interrogate them. As a result, as soon as they said a few words, several people were killed on the spot. They were killed directly in their Tsunagakure, the entrance to the village. At the same time, the huge noise caused by the ninjutsu explosion also attracted the attention of the ninjas in Tsunagakure village. So there was the scene in front of us. Ah! Does Menma-sama plan to attack directly and openly? Afe curiously looked at the group of sand ninjas in front of him and said. Is it possible that Tsunagakure still wants to sneak in secretly? Uchiha Menma said calmly. In his words, it was obvious that he did not take Tsunagakure village seriously at all. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Fila Novel Network. As expected of Menma-sama. Afe looked admiring. The two men were Uchiha Menma and Afe, who came from a Megakure village. They accepted Pain's mission and came to Tsunagakure village to capture Ichibai Shikaku. It was just before the Akatsuki organization meeting that day. 2 days have passed. They have been on the road these 2 days. It was not until today that they arrived at the sand-hidden village in the Kingdom of Wind. What happened? Is there an intruder? When Tamari rushed to the entrance of the village, she found that a large number of Suna ninjas had gathered here. So she pulled over a female ninja she knew from the same village and asked. Tamari-sama, the kunoichi was just a Chuyunin. When he saw Tamari, he quickly and respectfully replied there were 2 unidentified ninjas. Murakami and the others were killed. Unidentified ninja? Tamari was about to go over to see the situation. At this time, Kankuro's figure also ran over from not far away. Tamari, what happened? Is there an intruder? Kankuro looked eager to try. Tamari looked at this younger brother helplessly. That's right. Let's go to the front and take a look. Tamari said. Hearing this, Kankuro also nodded and secretly prepared the new puppet that he had carefully crafted during this period. He planned to perform well. Today, he will never make a move like he did more than a year ago. All my courage is gone. Kankuro swears. Outside the village entrance. Menma Uchiha stopped and glanced coldly at the group of sand ninjas in front of him. Get out of here. He said lightly. Asshole. Who are you? Too arrogant. Kill them. Damn it. Do you think our Tsunagakure village is easy to bully? I'm one of the 5 great ninja villages, not some small ninja village, you bastard. All the sand ninjas in Tsunagakure village were cursing angrily. If the adults hadn't arrived yet, they would have been tempted to take action. At this moment, Tamari and Kankuro were also walking from behind. Arriving in front of the village entrance. It's Tamari-sama and Kankuro-sama. Very good. Lord Tamari, hurry up and give the order, these 2 intruders are too arrogant. Kill them. Our sand-hidden village is not someone to be bullied. The ninjas present shouted angrily. Tamari was about to speak. At this time, Uchiha Menma, who was too lazy to talk nonsense, waved his hand directly. In an instant, the overwhelming sand behind him rose into the sky. The sand covered the sky like a sky. He occupied half of the sky. He looked at these Tsunagakure ninjas in front of him coldly. You're just an ant, why don't you just be obedient? After saying that, Uchiha Menma directly controlled the sand in the sky to turn into countless sand shurikens, attacking the group of Tsunagakure in front of him. What? The ability to control sand? This is not. This is Garasama's method. How come? The Tsunagakuers looked at the scene in surprise and exclaimed in disbelief. Seeing the sand shuriken attack, Tamari also gritted her teeth, took out the huge fan on her back, and used the technique she had just used at the training ground. The tornado hurricane that was used on the ground tried to block the sand shuriken that covered the sky and the sun. Wind escape. Tornado hurricane. Tamari tried her best to attack, and the huge tornado really blew away a lot of sand shurikens. At the same time, all the sand ninjas on the scene also took action at this time, and some of them attacked directly in the direction of Uchiha Menma. Go. The mantis arm is like a chariot. Uchiha Menma glanced at it lightly, and then lightly hooked his finger. In an instant, the sand in the sky was like a huge tsunami, rushing directly towards the entrance of Tsunagakuer village. What? The sand ninjas who had just rushed up turned pale with fright when they saw it. They turned around and ran away. But how could they run faster than the sand? Seeing that these sand ninjas were about to be swallowed up by the tsunami turned by the sand. At this time, Sand Shield, 1.6 a soft shout came, and then a huge shield of sand suddenly rose from the ground, blocking the sand tsunami. Boom! A huge collision sounded throughout the world. Layers of sand, the shield was shattered, but more sand shields blocked the front. Finally, the tsunami formed by the sand stopped. And the sand ninjas who were rescued looked at the messy area in front of them with lingering fear. Just now they were really frightened and thought they were going to die here today. Fortunately, Garasama arrived in time. These sand ninjas looked to the sky. On top of a ball of sand flying in the air, a man carrying a huge gourd, the figure stood on it. Garo looked at the two intruders in front of him coldly. Tsunagakuer village is not a place where you can act recklessly, he said coldly. Brush. Bang. A figure flashed. Gara, who had just finished speaking, only saw an afterimage flashing in his sight. Then a sharp pain hit him. When he regained consciousness, he found that he was already lying in a deep pit, and the sand armor on his body had been completely scrapped. Even his body had multiple fractures, and it was difficult to even get up. Gara. I just came on stage and you treat me like this? The smiles on the faces of those Suna ninjas who were originally excited by Gara's arrival froze at this time. With a stiff neck, he turned his head little by little and looked at the deep pit over there. Garasama, he. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 218. Gara. After being stunned for a moment, Tamari and Kankuro immediately shouted and ran over to the bottom of the pit. Gara's eyes were red and he gritted his teeth and tried to get up. But he failed. Shikaku, help me. Seeing that his injuries were too serious and he could no longer fight, Gara also roared in his heart. So troublesome. In the sealed space inside Gara's body, Ichibai Shikaku also curled his lips, and after muttering with dissatisfaction, he still lent his power to Gara. The next second, a huge burst of chakra emerging from Gara's body. As a large amount of sand wrapped around his body, he changed from a human-like figure to an inhuman monster in a short period of time. Tamari just ran to the edge of the pit before he and Kankuro could check Gara's condition. They heard a loud bang, followed by a tall figure jumping out from under the pit. He rushed out of the village. It's Gara. A happy smile appeared on Kankuro's face. But Tamari on the side couldn't smile. Gara, an elite jonin, was beaten in a single encounter and had to use the power of the tailed beast. This time the intruder, how strong is it? Tamari had a bad feeling in her heart. At the same time, the sand ninjas who were just shocked that Garasama was beaten to the ground as soon as he arrived, saw Garasama who had turned into a half-tailed beast, and they also cheered one after another. Garasama, come on. Kill these two intruders. Sunagakura village is not a village that allows others to bully you. These sand ninjas shouted loudly. But no one dared to rush forward. It's not that they didn't want to help, but judging from the situation just now, not only would they not be able to help Gaara, but they would actually hinder him. So, instead of going up and doing nothing to help, 27 is better to cheer for Gaara here. At least Gaara can feel their support. Intruder, die. The half-tailed beast Gaara roared and rushed towards Uchiha Menma. Oh! Can you already use the power of the tailed beast freely? Uchiha Menma looked at Gaara, who rushed up with some surprise. He knew very well how powerful the blow he just struck was. With Gaara's strength, he would definitely be seriously injured and unable to get up, and would be unable to fight anymore. But now, Gaara's injuries seem to have healed, and he has also used the ability to transform into a half-tailed beast. The key is, he seemed quite sensible. It seems that Gaara has not been standing still for more than a year. It looks like there's quite a bit of progress. Menma Uchiha thought. But, it's useless no matter how much progress you make. Let alone a mere half-tailed beast, even a complete tailed beast. In front of his power, he is nothing more than mere gravel. Boring little trick. Looking at Gaara, the half-tailed beast who rushed forward, Menma Uchiha just waved his hand quietly, and a huge palm grasped Gaara, who rushed forward. No matter how hard Gaara struggled, he could not break free from the grasp of this hand. Shikaku! Gaara yelled angrily. The next second. It's really troublesome, I'll give it all to you. Shikaku's voice rang in Gaara's mind. The next second. Boom! A massive amount of chakra gathered into a tanuki monster tens of meters tall, appearing in the open space at the entrance of Sunagakura village. Ah! Breath of freedom! Shikaku took a deep breath, even though he didn't actually need to breathe at all. But he was breathing the breath of freedom, not the breath needed for survival. That's different. Shikaku, kill him. Gaara's voice sounded in Shikaku's mind. Idiot human being, shut up. I am Uncle Shikaku, do you want you to command me? Shikaku is not a good-tempered tailed beast. When provoked, he would even dare to hit the nine tails. Whether you can beat him or not is another matter. Gaara, who was scolded by Shikaku, stopped talking. After all, he needed Shikaku's power at this moment, so let him be arrogant for the time being. Seeing that Gaara, this idiot human, was silent, Shikaku also looked at the human in front of him with dangerous eyes. Human, I smell something nasty from you. Shikaku said. Are you talking about this? Uchiha Menma smiled faintly. The next second. Boom! An extremely tall giant rose from the ground. It was the fourth stage of Susanoo. The black Susanoo was hundreds of meters tall. Shikaku was as weak as a baby in front of him. It's you. As soon as Shikaku saw the black Susanoo, he instantly recognized the identity of the person in front of him. Oh! It seems you still remember me. Uchiha Menma said with a faint smile. The next second, Black Susanoo's huge palm directly grabbed Shikaku's body. Shikaku, who was dozens of meters tall, fell into Black Susanoo's hand and was trapped with a mouse. It's as if he's pinched, no matter how hard he struggles, it's to no avail. Let me go. Do not kill me. Shikaku was scared. The monster in front of him had tortured him once more than a year ago, and he didn't expect that he would encounter him again this time. What else could Shikaku say? He could only beg for mercy. Pray that the other party would let him go. He has surpassed himself. Anyway, he is only the weakest among the nine-tailed beasts. The Uchiha in front of him is so powerful that it should be impossible for him to value his strength. Just like last time, the other party just beat him violently. After a pause, he let him return to the Jinchuriki's body without embarrassing him too much. It's just that this time Shikaku had a vague feeling in his heart. It was as if the Uchiha in front of him seemed to be targeting him. Same. But his strength is obviously so weak, shouldn't this Uchiha value his strength? For his own life. Shikaku, who had always been tough-talking and never admitted that he was the disgrace of the nine-tailed beasts, now actually changed his tune. I have to say, sometimes no matter whether it is a human being or any other creature, in the face of life and death, they will always give up something. For example, dignity. It's impossible to let you go, but don't worry, I won't go all out to come to a place like Tsunagakura village just to kill a tailed beast like you. Uchiha Menma said calmly. To read cool novels, go to Fila Novel Network. When he heard that the Uchiha in front of him was not ready to let him go, Shikaku's heart went cold. But soon, when he heard when the other party didn't intend to kill him, he suddenly came back to life. You really don't want to kill me? Shikaku asked with a naive expression. Do I need to lie to you? Uchiha Menma said calmly. Shikaku quickly shook his head. There is really no need for this Uchiha to deceive him. But, why? Shikaku couldn't understand. Could it be that he was planning to give his most valuable gift to a descendant of a certain family? Shikaku thought it was possible. After all, no matter how weak his one-tailed Shikaku is, he is still one of the nine-tailed beasts, right? The Uchiha in front of him was too strong to use him. But his juniors can't be so strong, right? Looking at the appearance of the Uchiha in front of him, Shikaku estimated that he was only in his 20s, so his junior might only be in his teens. In this case, wouldn't it be more than enough for him to protect a teenage boy? Thinking of this, Shikaku felt that he must have guessed the truth. Secretly he breathed a sigh of relief. Just don't kill him. As for being sealed in another body, Shikaku didn't care at all. After all, he wasn't very comfortable staying in Gaara's body. It would actually be pretty good if I could live in another house. Menma Uchiha noticed that Shikaku had a strange expression. I was thinking that this guy might have misunderstood something, right? But, who cares? Anyway, all he had to do was catch Shikaku. Other things have nothing to do with him. Gone. Uchiha Menma directly grabbed Shikaku with one hand, said to Faye below, and then controlled the black Susanna, who was several hundred meters tall, and walked towards the depths of the desert. Behind him, those in Tsunagakura village, the ninjas all had their eyes wide open, and some even sat on the ground and their legs were so weak that they could not stand up. They looked at Shikaku and Gaara being taken away. No one of them dared to stand up and stop them. Until after more than 10 seconds, Temari and Kankuro finally reacted as if they were waking up from a dream. They immediately shouted help and prepared to chase after them. Do not go. At this time, an old voice suddenly remembered, and at the same time several figures stopped Temari and Kankuro. Mr. Ebizo. Temari and Kankuro turned around and saw Ebizo walking towards him on crutches. They said anxiously, Gaara was captured by that person, we have to rescue him. It's useless. Ebizo shook his head, sighed and said the opponent is the Uchiha clan who has awakened the Mangekyo. Even Shikaku is like a plaything in his hands and can be manipulated at will. We in Tsunagakura village have no ability to take it from the opponent's hands. Save Gaara. But Temari was anxious and wanted to say something else. But Ebizo interrupted her and said, Temari, Kankuro, give up, the village can no longer bear any greater losses. Although we lost Gaara and Shikaku today, at least the other side did not wreak havoc in the village. At least the backbone of the village is still there. Then we don't care about Gaara. Temari asked loudly. Ebizo sighed and said nothing. He didn't want Gaara to be captured. After all, Gaara is now the only shadow-level strongman in the village, and even Ebizo 617 wanted to persuade the daimyo of the Land of Wind, made him agree to let Gaara become the Kazekage. But The opponent's strength is too strong. Even if it took all the power of the entire sand-hidden village, it would be impossible to save Gaara. What is the difference between the Black Susanna who is several hundred meters tall and the super wooden man from more than a year ago? They are also existences that they are powerless to resist. Weak people can only keep their heads down and be cautious in this world. No matter how unwilling or angry I feel. Ebizo could only accept this reality. Tamari just sighed when she saw that Ebizo, who didn't say a word, was also looking at the other Suna ninja. But whether they were close friends or some elite jonin who held a decisive position in the village, when they faced Tamari's gaze, they all turned their faces to the side. That's right. Their thoughts were the same as Ebizo's. They were all frightened. They don't even want to die. Seeing the expressions of these people, how could Tamari not know what they were thinking? If you don't go, I will. Tamari swept the faces of these people fiercely, then turned around and pushed away the sand ninja in front of her, and flew away in the direction of the Black Susanoo. Tamari. Kankuro wanted to catch up, but was held back by a hand. Kankuro, Tamari is a woman and does things irrationally. As a man, you should know what the right choice is. Ebizo looked at Kankuro. To be honest, he had never been optimistic about Kankuro before. Because his talent as a puppet master could only be said to be okay. But compared with his sister and a genius like Kankuro get up, there is really a big difference. Therefore, Ebizo never thought of handing over the future of the village to Kankuro. Even though he is the eldest son of the fourth Kazekage. But the shadow of a village is not hereditary. You are the crown prince is useless. But now, the talent in the village is withering, and Gaara, who he originally regarded as the next successor to the Kazekage, has also been captured. And Tamari, who is more outstanding than Kankuro, has also run away, and Tamari is coming. The look in her eyes before she left let Ebizo know that even if she came back, she would still have a grudge in her heart because of what happened today. From this point of view, Ebizo found helplessly that the only thing he could hope for was that he could not see her before. Kankuro fell in love. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 219. Elder Ebizo, but Tamari. Kankuro had a look of confusion on his face. For a moment, the words village and family swayed left and right in his mind. Kankuro, Gaara is captured, the village will have to rely on you from now on. Ebizo stepped forward, patted Kankuro's shoulder lightly, and said something in his ear. In an instant, Kankuro's whole body was shocked. The village, are you relying on me? Kankuro has never felt like today, and the burden on his shoulders has suddenly become extremely heavy. Elder Ebizo. Kankuro looked at Ebizo in front of him with a confused expression. Come with me, you still have a lot to learn. Ebizo didn't say anything, just said something, and then turned around and walked towards the village. Kankuro looked at it, hesitated for a moment, and finally looked back at the direction where Tamari disappeared, as if he had made up his mind, and finally made a decisive decision. He turned his head and followed Ebizo in front. Hearing the footsteps following behind him, Ebizo sighed inwardly. In fact, in terms of personality, he admired Tamari even more. With a personality like Kankuro, even if you really become the Kazekage, you are destined to not have any great achievements. You can barely maintain the current status of Tsunagakure village, and it is even very difficult. I just hope the next generation is good enough. Ebizo thought. However, at his age, I'm afraid he won't be able to wait until that time. Uchiha Menma, who grabbed Shikaku and left, quickly put away the Susanoo, and by the way, he crushed Shikaku, allowing him to return to Gaara's body. Of course. This process was not comfortable, even very painful. But Shikaku did not dare to yell. He was extremely scared now. The Uchiha in front of him was even more terrifying than Madara Uchiha back then. Shikaku just wants to be given to this Uchiha Jr. as soon as possible, and then he can protect his junior with peace of mind, so that maybe his life will be easier in the future. Poor Shikaku has no idea what he is about to face. Ah, by the way, are you sure Menma-san doesn't want to fix the little tail at the back? Afei, who had never had any sense of existence before, suddenly spoke at this time and said, "No need, just let her follow if she likes, she is just an ant on the left and right." Uchiha Menma said lightly. But the actual situation is, she is the girl that the main body likes. What can I do? Beat her? Then the main body will definitely scold me to death, so if she wants to follow, just follow. After extracting the Ichibai Shikaku from Gaara's body, she just happened to take Gaara's body away. Of course Afei didn't know what Uchiha Menma was thinking. He couldn't read minds. But for Uchiha Menmas he didn't think there was anything wrong with that. That little girl was just a jounin from Sunagakure village. A mere jounin, no matter which one of them she was, could easily crush her to death with one hand. So, if she wants to follow, she can follow. What makes Obito a little puzzled is why this Uchiha Menma doesn't kill her. Soon, Uchiha Menma and Afei found a cave in the Wind Country and put the unconscious I Love logo, dropped it on the ground. "You go seal the hole and I'll contact Pain," Uchiha Menma said. Afei nodded and turned around to seal the entrance of the cave. 10 minutes later, when Temari arrived here exhausted, she found that in front of her was a cave with the entrance completely sealed. And it was blocked. There is a seal on the huge rock at the entrance of the cave, but she can't break it by herself. Hateful. Temari fiercely took out her fan and hit it hard, but it was of no use at all. Didn't Kankuro follow? She looked back, but she didn't see her brother Kankuro for a long time, and couldn't help but sigh secretly. Temari knew that Kankuro had always been afraid of Gaara. But she also knew that Kankuro was still afraid of Gaara from the bottom of his heart. He treated Gaara as his younger brother, but he was just too scared. And now that Kankuro didn't follow, Temari also guessed that it was Ebizo and other people in the village who stopped him. But if Kankuro insists on catching up, Ebizo and the others won't be able to stop him. Just like when she caught up before. Didn't Hai Zhang and the others have to stop her and not let her go? Obviously, now that Kankuro has not caught up, it can only mean that he was persuaded by Ebizo and the others. Temari doesn't blame Kankuro, because she knew that Kankuro's choice was the most rational one. But as Gaara's sister, she couldn't just watch her brother being taken away and remain indifferent. Even though she knew that she was too impulsive and not rational enough to do so. But Temari did it anyway. After all, that's her biological brother. In the cave, Uchiha Menma contacted Pain and the others. Then other people from the Akatsuki organization appeared in the cave through the magic of the lantern body. Then the sealing work of Ichibai Shikaku began. In fact, with Uchiha Menma's ability, he can instantly extract the one-tailed Shikaku from Gaara's body, and then seal it into the heretic golem. But he didn't do that. Instead, he worked with the others and slowly extracted Shikaku's chakra bit by bit. And Shikaku, who finally understood what he was going to face, was also yelling curses inside Gaara's body at this time, and he cursed all the unpleasant words. However, no matter how harsh Shikaku's scolding was, it was useless. Because others outside can't hear it at all, and they won't stop sealing him because of this. Konoha, the land of the Senju clan. The bars are open, everyone is the same, what a fool. In the room, Ryusuke Yagamai spread out the mahjong tiles in front of him and looked at the three people in front of him with a smile. In the room at this time, Ryusuke Yagamai, Tsunade, Yojeo, and Kurane Yui, 4 people were surrounding them. Sitting at a mahjong table, playing mahjong together. Next to it, Hongdu, who had just eaten and drank enough, was sleeping soundly, not being awakened by the sound of their mahjong playing at all, and sleeping soundly. No more, no more. Tsunade pushed the cards in front of her and said with a frustrated look. She has been losing all day today. From morning to afternoon. It's outrageous that she didn't win a single hand. This made Tsunade afraid for a short time. I will never want to play mahjong again. Of course. This short period of time is about 2 to 3 days. This is actually a long time for Tsunade. After all, the last time she said she would never play mahjong again. But the next day he came to Ryusuke Yagamai to play cards with a smile on his face. I can only say that anything that came out of Tsunade's mouth was related to the word gambling. I couldn't believe it at all. Not coming? Okay, I won enough today anyway. Ryusuke Yagamai opened the small drawer in front of him, which was already filled with chips of various sizes. The total value of this pile of chips exceeds tens of millions of taels. You just got lucky today. I will definitely beat you next time. Tsunade said with an unconvinced look. Ryusuke Yagamai also laughed at this. She didn't pay attention to what Tsunade said at all. After all, she had said similar words more than once or twice. Every time they all lose, but every time they say they will win next time, and then they make the same mistake again next time. Not coming? I feel like I've had some luck. 11. Yan said with a pity look on her face. She opened the drawer and counted her chips, and then she couldn't help but laugh. I actually won a little bit. Hearing this, the expression on Tsunade's face suddenly became ugly. She looked at Yoi Kurane on the other side with expectant eyes. She hoped that Yoi Kurane would lose like herself. What a pity. Read Bao's Huang novels, just go to Fila Novel Network. There are more chips in Yui Hong's drawer than 11 yans. No matter how you look at it, you don't look like a loser. 3 wins and 1 loss. I suspect you 3 are cheating. Tsunade said angrily. Okay, no matter how old you are, don't look like you can't afford to lose. Ryusuke Yagamai said with a smile. Tsunade. What are you talking about? Ryusuke Yagamai. I'm your sister. Tsunade glared at him angrily. It's my sister, and my brother is still settling the scores. Ryusuke Yagamai said nonchalantly. Tsunade's aura immediately collapsed as soon as she raised it, and she ran to Ryusuke Yagamai with a smile and squeezed his shoulders with her little hands. Ryusuke, you have so much money, how about lending some to your sister? Tsunade suddenly realized that she seemed to have lost all her money again. She had just collected a rent 2 days ago. That's right. Now Tsunade is the largest landlord in Konoha. After all, the Senju clan's land has been taken over come back, and Tsunade is the only one in the huge Senju clan. She can't possibly live in all the houses, right? So, except for the core area, all other places have been rented out by her. In this way, she has to live in every house. I can receive tens of millions of taels in rent every month. In a year, it will be more than 100 million taels. If this is a normal expense, even if I eat and drink a lot and buy all kinds of luxuries, I will not spend that much throughout the year. A lot of money. But Tsunade likes to gamble. And she is notoriously bad at luck. No, with so many chips in Ryusuke Yagamai's drawer, except for a small part of them, the rest are his own principal. They were all won from Tsunade. It can be said that 80% of the rent that Tsunade collected just last month went to Ryusuke Yagamai. Want to borrow money? Ryusuke Yagamai took out 2 chips and handed them to Tsunade. N.A. Don't be too little. When Tsunade saw the 2 10,000 chips in her hand, she immediately patted Ryusuke Yagamai on the shoulder in an angry tone. What is 20,000 taels enough for? Tsunade said angrily. Eat. Ryusuke Yagamai looked matter of fact. What, is it difficult to get it? Are you going to gamble? And then lose to someone else? Hearing this, Tsunade also looked aggrieved. Although she is so old, She still acts like a child. The conscience of the world. Ryosuke Yagami is the only one here who can be called a child, right? But it just so happens the oldest Tsunade is the one with the most childish personality. Oh, by the way. The one who is sleeping is also half-weighted. Ryosuke. Just lend it to me. Tsunade took Yagami Ryosuke's arm and shook it vigorously. Ryosuke Yagami can't stand it anymore. Give, take them all. He gave Tsunade all the chips in the drawer. But remember to write an IOU. No problem. After getting the money, Tsunade's expression changed immediately. She laughed and held the chips in her arms, then skillfully took out a paper and pen and wrote an IOU to Ryosuke Yagami. You guys play slowly while I go out again. Tsunade waved her hand and actually used the teleportation technique to run away. Li Zhao, Yagami Ryosuke shook his head speechlessly. You don't need to guess what she is going to do. Ryosuke, which picture is this? 11. Yan came over curiously and looked at the IOU and asked curiously. Who knows, maybe 20 or 30, but there are quite a few. Ryosuke Yagami said, and put away the IOU. However, he was not afraid that Tsunade would not pay back the money. After all, he actually opened the casinos in Konoha, but Tsunade didn't know it. Therefore, Tsunade learned from him the money you borrowed and lost here is just a left hand for a right hand. It will eventually return to Yagami Ryosuke's hands. It's so miserable for Tsunade-sama to have a younger brother like you. Yuihong said with a smile on her side. Hearing this, Yagami Ryosuke hugged her in his arms angrily, stretched out his hand and patted her gently a few times. What's wrong with Sister Tsunade? I'm trying to help her stop her losses. Yagami. Ryosuke said. Yuihong's cheeks were red and she rolled her eyes at him angrily. Come on, let's eat. Yakami Ryosuke waved his hand, called to the two of them, and then went over to pick up Anko, who was still sleeping. Are you ready to eat? Hongdu woke up in a daze and asked. Yes, Hongdu, you can really sleep. Yuihong, who was walking next to her, said with a smile. Anko smiled and then struggled a few times. Ryosuke, put me down quickly, I can walk by myself. No, I'm afraid you'll fall asleep on the way. I'm not a pig. How could he fall asleep on the way? Haha. No pig can sleep with you. Ah. I'll bite you to death. Righteousness. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 220. After 1 day and 1 night. The sealing ceremony in the cave finally ended. Everyone in the Xiao organization finally relaxed after being busy for a long time. That girl is still out there, do you want to deal with it? A Fei suddenly said at this time. What girl? Haiden asked carelessly. It's a female Suna ninja who has been following us from Sunagakure village, and now she's been guarding outside. A Fei said. Otherwise, let me do it. It happens to be sealed for so long and my hands are a little itchy. Keiki Sakiki Same said with a ferocious laugh. Immediately, he glanced at Uchiha Menma and saw that he acquiesced. Then he separated a part of his chakra and formed a clone that appeared in the cave. Afe, go and open the seal. Kisame's clone ordered. Okay. Afe ran over swaying left and right. After a moment, there was a loud bang, and the big stone blocking the entrance of the cave was exploded instantly. Tamari, who had been guarding outside the cave, was startled. Fortunately, she was just a few steps away from the entrance of the cave. Some distance away, he was not hit by the force of the splash. Gaara. Seeing the hole exploded, she immediately rushed inside. But at this moment. Brush. A fierce attack came. Temari turned to avoid it, and at the same time, she threw a shuriken and shot it towards the attacker. Haha! A child's trick 10. Water escape. Exploding water and rushing waves. Boom. In a waterless environment, he creates a flood of water to hit his opponent. He is worthy of being called the tailless tail beast Kisame Kisame. He is really strong. At this time, facing Kisame, Temari also used ninjutsu to fight. But even though she was facing only a clone of Kisame Kisaki, she was still beaten back steadily, looking like she might lose at any time. Haha! Mr. Kisame is really good at bullying little girls. Afei shouted loudly while dancing. This made Kisame in front of him glare at him fiercely. He then covered his mouth, as if he accidentally said the wrong thing. Wind escape. Tornado and strong wind. A strong wind came. The wind and sand moved the rocks. This is one of Temari's own Tatsumaki series of ninjutsu. The level is B level, 567. But when the fierce wind blew, every particle of flying sand was like a bullet, crackling. It can hit small craters on the rock wall. Faced with this blow, Kisame hid directly in the water. At this time, the surrounding ground was submerged by the water, all of which were caused by Kisame's water. It was caused by escape. When the violent storm passed, Kisame instantly used ninjutsu, and several hungry sharks rushed out of the water, biting Temari on the water. Temari dodged in embarrassment, and almost failed to escape several times. But even so, her arm was still scratched by the shark, and it was immediately covered with blood, looking very miserable. At the entrance of the cave, Menma, Uchiha and Faye stood there, quietly watching the battle over there. Ah! It looks like Mr. Kisame won. Faye said with a smile. If Kisame, a mere Suna ninja, can't even win this, then he can give up his position as a formal member of the Akatsuki organization. Uchiha said indifferently. Hearing this, Faye also said with a smile, in that case, can I become a full-time employee? Uchiha Menma glanced at him. If you want to become a full-time employee, Suzuki will become a full-time employee first before you. Uchiha Menma said calmly. Ah! It was obviously me who came first. Faye squatted on the ground, drawing circles with a branch, looking depressed. Uchiha Menma ignored this joke. He looked at the battle over there, thinking that it should be over soon. Why is the main body so slow? Uchiha Menmaxen said. Just at this moment. Brush. A red portal suddenly opened in the mid-air in the distance. Following Yagami Ryuzuke, who was holding a cup of hot tea in his hand, he walked out from the other side of the portal. How lively! Yagami Ryuzuke took a sip of hot tea and said, do you mind adding me one more? After saying that, he glanced at the clone of Inakasaki Kisame. In an instant, there was a space distortion, and with a bang, the clone of Inakasaki Kisame exploded. Brush. Yagami Ryuzuke fell to the ground. He looked to the side. Temari. Are you okay? He asked lightly. Temari pursed her lips and shook her head. Her eyes were red, and she looked at Ryuzuke Yagami, and a feeling of grievance could not help but emerge in her heart. At this time, Ryuzuke Yagami's hand was green. The light lit up and lightly swept over Temari's injured arm. In an instant, the wound where she had studied abroad closed up, scabbing quickly formed, and then fell off, revealing a brand new arm, which looked as if she had not been injured. Thanks. Temari whispered. Yagami Ryuzuke nodded, then turned to look at Uchiha Menma and Abi over there. It's you again, why do you always appear? Ryuzuke Yagami said. At the entrance of the cave, Faye carefully looked at Ryuzuke Yagami opposite, and then looked at Menma Uchiha next to him. Menma-sama, this is Ryuzuke Yagami of Konoha. Things seem to be getting tricky. In fact, Obito under the mask was thinking about the red portal where Ryosuke Yagamai just appeared. Needless to say, it was some kind of time and space ninjutsu. But Obito swore that I have never seen such a time and space ninjutsu. What kind of technique is that? Obito thought in confusion. At this moment, Uchiha Menma also narrowed his eyes, then suddenly laughed and said, haha. Misunderstanding, this is just a misunderstanding, I don't want to go against you Konoha. Afe, let's go. He greeted Afe directly and was about to leave. Ah. Oh. Afe was stunned for a moment, then nodded and followed quickly. He saw Menma Uchiha and Afe leaving. Ryosuke Yagamai did not stop them either. Gaara. Temari saw that everyone who blocked the way was gone. She immediately shouted and ran towards the cave. At this time, Ryosuke Yagamai also followed, and soon she saw him lying on the ground in the cave, motionless. Gaara! Gaara! Temari knelt down next to Gaara's body, looking heartbroken. At this time, a hand gently placed on her shoulder. Temari raised her head and looked. She saw Ryosuke Yagamai looking at her. He is dead. Ryosuke Yagamai said calmly. Temari. Of course she knew Gaara was dead. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Fila Novel Network. But Temari was unwilling to give in. It took a lot of effort for her to catch up here, and it took a lot of effort to recover her brother. But what I saw was my brother's body. Ryosuke Yagamai, you must have a way to save Gaara, right? Temari has nothing to count on now. She can only look at Ryosuke Yagamai with a pleading look on her face. I don't have the power to bring back the dead. Ryosuke Yagamai said. Of course, this is a lie. In fact, as long as a reincarnation technique is needed, Gaara can be easily resurrected. But why did Ryosuke Yagamai do this? Hearing this, the light in Temari's eyes it dimmed instantly. But right now? But I heard that your Tsunagakuer has a technique called Subjay, which allows you to exchange one life for another and resurrect the recently deceased. Ryosuke Yagamai said. Brush. Temari stood up suddenly and looked at Ryosuke Yagamai. Are you serious? We Tsunagakuer have such ninjutsu? Temari asked with an excited look on her face. Ryosuke Yagamai nodded. But this technique was created by Cho, your Tsunagakuer, and I'm not sure if others know about it. Yagamai Ryosuke said. After all, Cho has been killed by him. Grandma Cho. Temari pondered for a moment after hearing the words, and then said, I know, although Granny Cho is no longer here, her brother Elder Ebizo is still alive, and he must know about the art of reincarnation. I'll take you back to Tsunagakuer. Ryosuke Yagamai said. Hearing this, Temari also nodded. Sorry to bother you, she said. Just a small thing. Ryosuke Yagamai said as he snapped his fingers. In an instant, a red portal appeared on the ground beneath the three of them. The three of them also passed through the portal in an instant. On the other side of the portal, it was Tsunagakuer village. After a day and a night of fermentation. At this time, Tsunagakuer village was still immersed in a sad atmosphere. At this moment, Ryosuke Yagamai appeared with the bodies of Temari and Gaara. Suddenly Zi attracted the attention of many people to look at them. It's Temari, she's back. Etc. Who is that person next to Temari? The Shinigami of the ninja world. Seeing Temari coming back, many people had happy smiles on their faces. But the next second, they saw Ryosuke Yagamai next to Temari, and the smiles on their faces were instantly replaced by fear. Ryosuke Yagamai didn't either. He was concerned about these people's fear of him. He looked at Temari beside him. The latter nodded understandingly and immediately went to find Elder Ebizo. Ryosuke Yagamai, who stayed where he was, walked directly to a drink shop next to him. He sat down and waved to the shop owner. Lord Yagamai, what are your orders? The shop owner looked very scared. Give me a glass of juice. Ryusuke Yagamai said. Hearing this, the shop owner secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This ninja god of death didn't seem to want to kill anyone, but it was too simple to drink juice. The shop owner quickly responded and turned around to squeeze the juice. The juice went. Soon, a glass of freshly squeezed juice was served. Lord Yagamai, your juice. The shop owner handed it over respectfully with both hands. How much? Ryusuke Yagamai asked. No, no, no. Being able to treat Mr. Yagamai to a drink of the store's juice will already make the store shine. How dare the shop owner collect money? Don't be afraid, I'm not some man-eating monster. Ryusuke Yagamai said, handing over 100 taels. I don't have the habit of eating without paying, so just keep it, he said. After hearing this, the shop owner could only accept the 100 taels. He thought to himself, this legendary ninja god of death is not as scary as those sand ninjas said. Look. People still pay for drinking juice. Where's the money? A few minutes later. Ryusuke Yagamai had already drank half a glass of juice. At this time, Tamari also ran over with a group of Suna ninjas. The leader of them was an old man who was already very old. Needless to say, this person must be Joe's younger brother Ebizo. Elder Ebizo, I am here. Tamari brought Ebizo and others here. At this time, Ebizo and the others also saw Ryusuke Yagamai sitting at the door of the drink shop next to them, and they couldn't help but be secretly surprised. Lord Yagamai. They hurried over and said hello respectfully. This is a god of death that they cannot afford to offend. Don't dare be disrespectful. Ryusuke Yagamai waved his hands, looking like he was too lazy to pay attention to them. Elder Ebizo, let's take a look at Gaara first. Tamari shouted anxiously. What time is it? She still looked unhurried. It looked like Tamari was in a hurry. Hearing this, Ebizo and others also gathered around. He is already dead, can he really be saved? An elite Jounin checked and confirmed that Gaara was completely dead. There was no possibility of saving him at all. Let me do it. Ebizo asked the others to get out of the way, and then he knelt down and checked Gaara's condition. The person is dead, but fortunately he hasn't been dead for a long time and can be saved. Ebizo said after finishing the inspection. Real. As soon as Tamari heard the news, her eyes lit up instantly. Well, you guys, get out of the way and I'll perform the art of reincarnation. Ebizo also learned this forbidden technique from his sister. Although he knew that once he used the technique of reincarnation, he would definitely not survive. But he is already very old. Even if he survives, he will not live for a few years. I'm dead. Instead of doing this, it's better to dedicate your life in exchange for an outstanding young ninja like Gaara. This is the best choice for Sunagakure village. Being in Konoha, I can upgrade my talent entries. Author, MRMO. Chapter 221. Does this old man really know how to reincarnate? When Ryusuke Yagamai heard Ebizo saying that he would use the reincarnation technique to resurrect Gaara, he couldn't help but look at him in surprise. He had previously thought that Joe was the only person in Sunagakure village who knew this forbidden technique. No, think of it. Ebizo, who is Joe's younger brother, will do it too. The reason why he mentioned the reincarnation technique to Tamari before was because he felt that Joe should leave the scroll of this gate control technique in Sunagakure. When the time comes, someone needs to come and learn this forbidden technique. Although I don't know if it's too late. But Yagamai Ryusuke has already said it anyway. Whether he can do it or not is the business of Sunagakure village itself. It has nothing to do with him. Even if they can't do it, yes, there is no way to resurrect Gaara. That is also Sunagakure village's own loss. Yagamai Ryusuke has nothing to lose. However, he did not expect that Ebizo really knew this forbidden technique. By the way, Why do you have nothing to do to learn this kind of forbidden technique that exchanges one life for another? Are all of them tired of living? On the field, Ebizo began to use the art of reincarnation to resurrect the dead Gaara. And in the corner aside, Kankuro, who looked embarrassed, also looked at Temeri over there and Gaara lying on the ground. Although his previous decision was the most rational choice. But now facing his sister and brother, Kankuro felt as if he was ashamed to see them. I was too embarrassed to pass. Temeri also spotted Kankuro hiding in the corner. After hesitating for a while, he still didn't go through. Although she also knew that Kankuro's previous choice was actually the right one. But I always feel a little uncomfortable in my heart. After all, sometimes there is only a thin line between reason and cold-bloodedness. Kankuro's choice was rational. But Temeri is an emotional person. Compared to this rational choice, she hopes that Kankuro can be like her and pay more attention to the family relationship between their brothers and sisters. Therefore, Temeri also had some grudges in her heart at this moment. I don't want to go over and deal with this guy Kankuro. Ryosuke Yagami doesn't know much about this, and he himself doesn't care about other people's family matters. At this moment, he looked at Ebizo kneeling next to Gaara's body, forming a seal with his hands and releasing a burst of blue energy. Interesting. Ryosuke Yagami watched carefully. To be honest, Cho is also a talent, and he can actually create such a forbidden technique that can resurrect the dead. It's a pity, the technique of reincarnation has a shortcoming, that is, it is suitable for people who have been dead for too long. Dead people are useless. As for how long is too long? This mainly depends on the degree of the practitioner's research on the art of reincarnation. If the practitioner's degree of research on the art of reincarnation is high enough, even if a dead person who has been dead for 10 days and a half can also be resurrected. But if you are just a beginner, you may not be able to do anything if you die for only a little while. Obviously, Ebizo's research on the art of reincarnation is far less than Cho. So he would check Gaara's body before to make sure that Gaara's death was not very long. If it had been more than a day, there would be nothing he could do. Fortunately, Gaara was after the first Shikaku was completely withdrawn. He just died. He only died for no more than an hour in total. He was still within the range of Ebizo's abilities. 10 minutes later, Gaara's eyelids on the ground suddenly moved. And he used the art of reincarnation. Ebizo's body was almost exhausted at this time. As the last trace of chakra and life force were exhausted, Ebizo's body also fell to the ground with a thud. Elder Ebizo! The surrounding Suna ninjas all exclaimed. 2 Sunagaku Jonins even stepped forward to help Ebizo up, only to find that Ebizo was dead. Not breathing. But at this time, look! Gaara is alive! Someone suddenly exclaimed loudly. I saw Gaara, who was lying motionless on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes at this time, and then sat up. I am. Gaara looked around with a confused expression. The last scene he remembered was the one-tailed Shikaku being completely removed from his body, and then his eyes fell into a dark scene. But now, why did he return to Sand Hidden Village again? Gaara felt like his brain was a bit exhausted. Don't understand what happened in the middle? Great, Gaara. Temeri saw Gaara come to life, and said excitedly, you are alive again. Very good. Temeri repeated the words great incoherently. At this time, Gaara, who heard Temeri's words, also reacted. That's right. The one who was separated from the tailed beast should not be dead. Yes. But why now? Just when Gaara was wondering how he came to life again, he suddenly saw the lifeless Ebizo being supported by several Suna ninjas. Elder Ebizo. Gaara faintly realized something. It was Elder Ebizo who used the forbidden technique to save you. Sure enough. What Temeri said confirmed the guess in Gaara's heart. But, why? Gaara couldn't understand. Aren't he a monster that was hated by the people in the village? Although the situation has improved slightly in the past year or so, it is still limited. Most people still regard him as a monster. I didn't dare to talk to him or even get close to him. But now, why would Elder Ebizo sacrifice his own life to kill him? Gaara was stunned for a moment. At this time, a very powerful forbidden technique. Yakami Ryuzuke, who had finished drinking the juice, put it in the cup and walked over. It's you. Gaara looked at him. Ryusuke Yagamai smiled faintly at Gaara, then looked at the Suna ninja in front of him and said then, as the person who saved the future of your Sunagakure village, I hope you can now tell the story about what do you think of giving me the scroll of the art of reincarnation as a thank you gift. The sand hides everyone. This, of course that's no problem. A senior member of Sunagakure stood up and said. They Sunagakure are now at their weakest. Although Gaara has been resurrected, the one-tailed Shikaku in his body has disappeared. Not to mention, even one-tailed guard crane was still there, and facing the big boss in front of him, it was like nothing. He couldn't beat him anyway. Moreover, Yagamai Ryuzuke was right. If he hadn't saved Temari and brought back Gaara's corpse, it was impossible for them to resurrect Gaara. Based on Ebizo's research on the art of reincarnation, by the time they found Gaara's body, it was already too late. So, Ryusuke Yagamai said it was him. There seems to be nothing wrong with saving Sunagakure's future. For this, they Sunagakure sent a scroll with the art of reincarnation as thanks. Is there any problem? To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Fila Novel Network. No problem. It's completely reasonable. Temari looked at Ryusuke Yagamai speechlessly. But deep down in her heart, Temari was still extremely grateful to Ryusuke Yagamai. Even though he was asking for benefits from the village now, from Temari's point of view, this was normal. After all, they don't have a very good relationship with their Sunagakure village, so they can't help their Sunagakure village for free, right? So, isn't it appropriate to get some benefits? As for the art of reincarnation, it's too precious. To be honest, Temari doesn't care too much about this. Gaara's survival is more important than anything else. And the previous attitude of the village hurt Temari to a certain extent. Temari feels that she has identified with the village from the bottom of her heart. It has been reduced a lot. Soon, the scroll of the art of reincarnation was brought to the ninjas of Sunagakure and handed over to Yagamai Ryusuke. Of course, they had left a copy before that. After all, there is no way Sunagakure village would not want this magical ninjutsu that can resurrect the dead. Even if it means one life for another, just like Ebizo did, he used his life of only a few years to live in exchange for my love. Luo still has decades of young life left to live. This is a good deal no matter how you look at it. Moreover, the senior management of Sunagakure has already vaguely had an idea. If a group of dead warriors are specially trained to learn the art of reincarnation, then with Sunagakure's high-end power, do they no longer have to worry about their own lives? Of course. The art of reincarnation can only resurrect the dead, but if you don't even have a complete corpse, then there's no point in coming back to life. Use. However, what is Sunagakure best at? Some people would say magnetism. But in fact, magnetism is an ability that only the Kazekage has, and other Sunagakure do not know magnetism. Therefore, what Sunagakure is really good at is actually puppet technique. The popularity of puppet technique in Sunagakure is extremely high. Sunagakure also has a ninja who specializes in the puppet technique. For example, the ninjutsu where Cho is located specializes in the puppet technique. And in the puppet technique, there is a forbidden art called human puppetry. It is to make a living person into a puppet and transform his body into a puppet. This is a forbidden art in Sand Hidden Village. Generally, few puppet masters will do this. Even if it is transformed, only some insignificant parts will be transformed. For example, fingers or hands. But it is unheard of to transform the whole body into a puppet, leaving only a heart and brain. But this does not mean that they cannot do it. It's just that I don't want to do it. So, using the technique of reincarnation and human puppet, is there something wrong? Many senior executives of Tsunagaku are already thinking about it in their hearts. If there is a head start, that would be great. In the future, their Tsunagaku village's strength will definitely see a surge. Even in terms of top combat power, they are already at a disadvantage. But in terms of high-end combat power, they will surpass ninja villages like Kirigakure, and even rival Iwagakure and Kumagakure. Of course, Tsunagaku never thought of comparing himself to Konoha. After all, they themselves know what kind of strength Konoha is now. To compete with Konoha? Isn't that a tough nut to crack? Anyway, now they have re-signed the alliance treaty with Konoha. Konoha came as their ally. As long as they don't take the initiative to seek death and anger Konoha, it is impossible for Konoha to take the initiative to go to war with them due to the poor geographical environment of the Wind Country. After all, picture what? Is there a lot of wind and sand in the country of Tufang? Or does the cactus grow taller? More than an hour later, Gaara has also figured out the ins and outs of everything. Until Ebizo used the forbidden technique to resurrect himself with the technique of reincarnation, but the price was his own life. For this reason, Gaara's mentality has also undergone great changes. In addition, after his resurrection, the attitude of Tsunagaku's senior management towards him seemed to have changed significantly. This also made Gaara deepen his sense of identification with the village in his heart. Okay, you can handle the rest by yourselves. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Seeing that there was no excitement, Yagami Ryuzuki was ready to go back to Konoha. After all, Tsunagaku village was windy and sandy, and the air was very dry. This made Yagami Ryuzuki, who was used to living in Konoha, very I don't like it here. I always feel like I can eat a mouthful of sand when I take a breath. It's no wonder that no one has ever wanted to invade this hellish place called the Kingdom of Wind. With such a bad environment, who would want to come? Wait a moment. Ryusuke Yagami was about to use Hirazaka to return to Konoha. At this time, Tamari suddenly stopped him. Something's wrong. Ryusuke Yagami looked at her. I want to go with you. Tamari said. Ryusuke Yagami. This result was really beyond his expectation. Although Yagami Ryusuke did perform a good heroic rescue just now, he did not expect that Tamari would directly go back to Konoha with him. After all, Tsunagaku was Tamari's home. She is the fourth generation Kazekige's daughter. The princess of Sand Hidden Village. Result, she actually wanted to go back to Konoha with him. What's the situation? Really had a falling out? Ryusuke Yagami looked at Tamari. The surrounding senior officials of Tsunagaku were also looking at her, and many of them frowned. If it weren't for Yagami Ryusuke's presence, they would have cursed her. Fenying's woman is going to another village? What's the meaning? Can't you stay in our Tsunagaku village anymore?